Good afternoon, councillors. Please be upstanding for the Chair of Stratford District Council, Councillor Kate Rolfe. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Can I ask you please to remain standing for a moment? I would like to introduce you to my friend, Reverend Dr. Paul Edmondson, to lead us in thought before today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. The job can be stressful. I think we do our best, and people need to remember we are human too. These words are from Manuela Pertegella, our Member of Parliament. There's an inspiring profile about her in this week's Stratford-on-Avon Herald. Her comments were in light of her having seen the Chancellor of the Exchequer in tears across the House the other day. Politics can be a great leveller of people, in spite of their experience and intentions. A few pages further on in this week's Herald are some reflections about the interim chairperson of Warwickshire County Council, George Finch. He's 18 years old, and some people are holding his youth against him. Let us suppose for a moment, generously, that in politics, everybody wants to give of their best to help others. That's why I hope you're all here this afternoon. You feel you are in the right public office. You have been elected, and you are supported by the confidence of others. In Christianity, there is a tradition that wisdom is sometimes given to the youngest in a community. Age may claim longer experience, but youth brings its own perspective and knowledge and experience too. I don't happen to know George Finch. I've never met him, but I know I wish him well. And my hope for him is that he will speak the truth plainly and listen carefully to what others say in reply. That's what politics should be about, whatever the age of the politician. The job can be stressful. I think we do our best, and people need to remember we are human too. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I declare this meeting open. You can now be seated. Oh, gosh. Sorry. Is it a comedy chair? Sorry.
My chair.
No, I'll sit up. It's fine. It's fine. I'll sit up. It's fine.
Kate.
I just didn't expect to actually fall down. Councillors and members of the public, welcome to this council meeting on the 14th of July. There are no planned fire alarms scheduled at this time. Therefore, should the fire alarm go off, please make your way out of the building via the nearest fire exit to the car park beside the Windmill Public House. Councillors, when addressing the meeting, please stand and ensure your microphone is switched on and that you speak directly into the microphone so that it is picked up via the live audio feed. When you have finished addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Please do not move the microphone from its set position, and when speaking, ensure the microphone is directly in front of you and not to the side or high up. Councillors, also, this is my first meeting as chair, although I've chaired many, many meetings before, this is my first meeting as chairing the Stratford District Council meeting. So if you'd kindly give me a little bit of leeway in case I make some errors. Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. David, are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillors Curtis, Hardin, Ostrander, Padgham, Skinner, Stanley, and from Sarah Woolley-Hoggins, although Sarah may join the meeting later in the day, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Item 2, declarations of interest. I invite the monitoring officer to make a statement.
Thank you, Chair. Is it all right if I remain seated whilst I refer to this? I'm looking at the Constitution.
Absolutely.
Thank you. As members know, a delegation to the monitoring officer exists to issue dispensation where it is required under the Constitution. This is allowed to ensure the meeting remains correct and that the proper business of council can continue. The relevant items that have recently been identified to me are item 7 relating to the local government review and item 13 relating to the motion re members allowance and IRP as it touches and concerns all councillors. I'm also aware that some councillors here also sit at parish, district and or county level. And the debate regarding local government review relates specifically to SDC's position, so that's Stratford District Council's position today, not for the parish, not for county, etc. And what I need to explain here is so long as those councillors declare that they come to this debate with an open mind, they're not predetermined, they can still take part in the vote as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Marcia. Item 3, minutes. I now seek a proposer and seconder for the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of April 2025 and annual council held on the 14th of May 2025. May I have a proposer, please? Councillor Alcock, thank you. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Fradgley, Jenny Fradgley. Are we all agreed with the minutes, councillors? Thank you very much. Item 4, announcements. We now move on to announcements and my chair's announcements. Firstly, Trevor Pepper, Stratford-on-Avon District Council's CCTV manager, who was recently awarded a British Empire Medal for services to the nighttime economy and the hospitality industry in the King's Birthday Honours List 2025. Trevor is the Honorary Treasurer and Regional Representative of National Pub Watch, which sees pubs work to address crime and antisocial behaviour with support from police to create a safer nighttime economy. On behalf of the District Council, I would like to congratulate Trevor on his achievement, and may I ask for a round of applause as he won't be here today. Thank you. Thank you. I have done a few civic engagements since being appointed as chair. I attended the Mayor's civic ceremony, civic service at Holy Trinity Church. Are the slides going to move on? Or I can't see anymore. Yes, and I also went to see the RSC's The Constant Wife. If you get the opportunity, it is a very, very, very funny play. Well worth seeing. And I also attended a Heart of England event in the middle of a field somewhere, and it was incredibly hot, and I think most of us melted, but I'm here now, fully compliant, I think. Thank you very much, everyone. I will now invite the leader, Councillor Susan Juna, to make any announcements. Thank you.
I just want to be able to acknowledge those communities that were recipients of the Climate Change and now Climate Changing Nature Fund that the District Council runs. I've been trying to visit as many as possible. I haven't been able to visit all. I did last year visit 3 or 4. This year I've visited another 3 the projects so far, and I've been absolutely amazed by the work that is being done by the communities under the climate change, that have received money from the Climate Change and now Climate Change and Nature Fund. Recently I visited the Ilmington Shop, the Shakespeare Hospice and the Bear Pit Theatre. And as I said, I've visited others, including Great Olm and other villages that have participated in the project before. I've just been so much amazed by the work they've done, all of them to address not only their carbon footprint, but their energy use, their surface water flooding, energy efficiency, and they have done a tremendous work. And most of them are reporting back through through their parish councils. There is a network of parish councils that all exchange information, and it is making and encouraging other parish councils and other community organisations to become involved. So I just wanted to say thank you to them.
Thank you, Susan. I now invite the Chief Executive, David Buckland, to make any announcements.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 announcements. Firstly, and you should find on your desks a piece of paper, which I'll just read for you. At full council on the 14th of April, there was a motion discussed providing clarity around the ownership of public open space. A point of order and clarification was then raised in particular as regards management companies, which the Chair, as fragile at the time, said we would look into and then respond further at the next available full council meeting. Hence my response today. So the point of the clarification: the local authority currently has no authority to ban management companies, nor can local authorities unilaterally go back and try and unpick previous or historical Section 106 agreements. In the meantime, the SPD development requires for Stratford-on-Avon District Council, which, as you know, forms part of the local plan, has been updated in Part L, where it relates to public open spaces. This update sets out cascade provisions for dealing with public open space, with the expectation that the public open space will be transferred to public ownership, i.e. town, parish or district council, before it can be considered for a management company. This, of course, only relates to new applications determined after April 2024 and will only apply where the developer accepts and agrees the terms of our Section 106, which we could then enforce. But there is nothing in law at present which compels their buy-in on these terms. Also, item 8 on the agenda today will give consideration to setting up a task and finish group to explore what, if any, other options are available locally to address residents' concerns. Unfortunately, there is no immediate solution, and ideally, we need the government to legislate on this issue where necessary and as soon as possible. And we are aware that discussions are underway. In particular, it is noted that the policy paper on the government's response to the Competition and Marketing Authority's market study into house building suggests the government is committed to reviewing appropriate legislative change, and we await their update in due course. So that was an update following the last meeting of Council. My second announcement, you'll find on your desk in the buff colour paper a public question, and got John Dinny. He's going to speak to that in a short while. We have got a second public speaker, a lady by the name of Carol Gibbs, who will be speaking as well for 3 minutes under that section. There was some confusion about the submission of the question, but Chair has allowed Carol to respond. There won't be a response, so to Carol at the meeting, the portfolio holder will respond to Carol after the question has been put. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Item 5 on the agenda is the Vice Chair Declaration of Acceptance of Office. I invite Councillor Rice to approach the dais to accept his chain of office and make his declaration of acceptance of office.
Yes. Better sign me in before giving me the chair.
Could you read that first, please?
Okay. Having been elected to the office of Vice Chair of the Council of the District of Stratford-on-Avon, I hereby declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to be guided by Stratford-on-Avon District Council's Code of Members' Conduct in the performance of my functions in that office. I need you to sign it. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a gong, isn't it? And I've got a big head.
Oh, hang on. Don't get it caught on your glasses.
Oh!
And it's broken. Great start.
Oh, dear.
hang on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I tell you what, you have the ribbon.
Yep.
You have that. And in there is the badge for your dear lady wife.
Okay. For both those. Thank you.
You know, things come in threes, ladies and gentlemen. I sat on a comedy chair and I broke the vice chair's badge. Who knows what's going to happen next? Anyway, thank you, and thank you, Mike. I look forward to working with you. Item 6, public participation. In accordance with the Council's constitution, questions may only be asked when received by the head of paid service 2 clear days before the day of the meeting. Item 6 on the agenda is a public participation. We have received 1 question from the public, but also, as David announced earlier, there is a further question. Councillor Dinny, would you like to come to the table, and do you have a supplementary question, please? And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I do have a supplementary question. First of all, thank you to Councillor Coles for the reply to my initial question and for her agreeing to write to the Secretary of State in support of our cause. I'd like to go on to say Stratford-on-Avon district is aware of the demographic changes it faces. The most significant of these is the dramatic rise in the population and proportion of elderly people within it. This is keenly felt in Shipston and the surrounding areas. 28% over 65, 4% over 85. The numbers aged 85 and over are set to double over the next decade. This brings a substantial increase in the prevalence of chronic and degenerative conditions which require sustained attention as close to home as possible. Demand for palliative and terminal care is set to explode. SWIFT and ICB tell us that the answer is to be care at home. Since the consultation, we are now starting to see examples of this, mostly associated with discharge from acute hospitals. Typically, an elderly patient will be sent home to be cared for by someone of a similar age. When supplementary home care is provided, the carers are dispatched from Coventry and have 30 miles of the A46 to negotiate before they arrive. A care worker will have several visits to fit into their busy day that could be anywhere in the Shipston area virtual ward. Wellesbourne to Little Compton, Stratton-on-Avon to Tyso. Specialist nurse or therapist visits are normally restricted to once per week, and the whole package comes to an end after 6 weeks. The expectation being that the primary care network and district nurses will pick up the load after that. In practice, the handover must be arranged by the patient or their elderly volunteer carer. In some cases, family members of working age are expected to cease working to take up caring duties. This is a fragile arrangement that will drain the local economy. Given this background, we are concerned about the impact of the removal of local inpatient beds on the elderly patients being cared for in rural South Warwickshire.
Mr. Dinny, may I remind you have 30 seconds left and you haven't asked the question yet. If you could go on to the question, please. As soon as
How many patients are there expected to be in this virtual ward? How will they be cared for? We see nothing in the recently announced 10-year plan to provide the care required. In Shipston North alone, we see 20% of the population limited in their daily lives by disability, 75% living alone or with one other person, 40% are in rented accommodation, so without a house to sell or care.
I'm sorry,
care in
Mr.
a
Dinner,
home.
your 3 minutes is up. If you could please conclude very quickly with a question, a direct question.
I would ask the Council if they would please to support the motion this afternoon for the call-in to the Secretary of State.
Thank you very much. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Dinny, for your question. I have them here, and if you are happy, I will obtain these numbers and do them as a written reply to you and to all our colleagues here at the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Mr. Dinny. May I call Carol Gibbs forward, please, to ask a question? You have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Apparently the question that I have asked is somewhere in cyberspace, but no doubt it will catch up with us all in due course. The supplementary question which I will start with is that I hope that the Stratford District Council can support our MP's call-in request to the Secretary of State to have the project, the Ellen Badger Hospital, reviewed so that it can once again properly serve our rural community with the healthcare it needs. A little bit of background, it's like a running sore in our community, is the Ellen Badger, but anyway. Going back to 2018, Jane Blackley, Director of Development for Swift, spoke enthusiastically on YouTube video about the redevelopment of the Ellen Badger Hospital, which would be a beacon of health provision for Shipston and the rural south of the county. In this video, she expressed her thanks to the League of Friends who, with their substantial donation, were vital to making this a reality, and planning permission was duly granted. Fast forward a few years, and little of what Jane Blackley promised remained, including the removal of beds from the Ellen Badger on an alleged temporary basis to Leamington. At this point, Swift should have initiated a public consultation on the changes they were proposing. Instead, they ignored the public backlash. In January of this year, the newly created ICB were forced into organising a public consultation. However, this was narrow in its scope, concentrating purely on the location of rehabilitation beds, rather than the fully integrated hospital originally promised. Despite an overwhelming response from Stratford, Leamington and Shipston residents favouring the restoration of beds at the Ellen Badger, this was ignored by the ICB, a waste of taxpayers' money and erosion of public trust. What we now have is a huge 3-storey building which does not replace the medical services offered by its predecessor. The project has eaten money, SIL, Section 106, and $635,000 from the League of Friends. It's been 8 years in the making at a cost in excess of 10 million and is definitely not a hospital. Swift have taken activities and therefore income away from the Townsend Hall and Scout Hut in town, both with excellent facilities for community use, and installed them in a wellness hub.
Ms. Gibbs, I'm sorry, you've got 30 seconds left. Okay. Please, could you come to the question?
I've obviously asked the question at the beginning that the one would hope that the council would support the motion that I think is proposed later to support our MP's call-in to the Secretary of State. Thank you. As I say, hopefully the cyberspace question will catch us up in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question. Obviously, we're going to have a debate on the notice of motion in a little while, but I would, as I was with Councillor Dinny, happy to support by writing to the Secretary of State in support of the call-in and also supporting our MP in her work in that process. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. We now move on to item 7, which is minute 117, local government reorganisation proposals, preferred option. Item 7 is minute 117 from the Cabinet meeting on 7th of July 2025 regarding local government reorganisation proposals, preferred option. I invite the monitoring officer to advise the rules of debate.
Thank you, Chair. There are a number of items on the agenda today, councillors, and accordingly the Chair has stated she will be allowing 3 minutes per councillor in relation to each item that's to be debated today, not just for LGR. However, regarding item 7, which is LGR, the Chair will also allow the group leaders 5 minutes and then a second chance to make representations for a further 3 minutes. This rule is only suspended to the conclusion of the Council's debates today, as per Rule 24 in the Council Procedure Rules. The motion to suspend the normal rules of debate requires a proposer and seconder, as made clear in Part 15 of the Constitution Rules, which the Chair will take forward now.
Thank you, Marcia. Councillor Bromwich.
Yeah, can I just raise a quick point of order? Because you've afforded the group leaders this opportunity. Does that apply to those who are not party political members?
Yes, it does.
Thank you for the clarification.
I now move the following, that Council Procedure Rule 15.5, when a councillor may speak again, be waived to allow one nominated member from each group to speak more than once on the local government reorganisation item. I seek a proposer for this item, Councillor Junod, and I also seek a seconder for this. Councillor Alcock, thank you very much. We have a proposer and a seconder. Are we all agreed? Thank you. Agreed that the Council Procedure Rules be varied for this meeting. I invite Councillor Junod to introduce this report.
Just to be clear, that on the recommendation that you're being asked to consider today, it is recommended that the two unitary model, as outlined by the Deloitte's report, be endorsed as the preferred option for the purposes of local public engagement prior to a final decision being taken by the Council as presented to Government, to be presented to Government in November 2025. The background to this is that the Government published the Devolution Deal White Paper in December 2024. It's quite a weighty document. The main part of that document, 115 pages, deals with devolution to new strategic authorities. And we mustn't forget the new strategic authorities because that is quite crucial to the debate of where we will go with the unitary. Within the paper was that all two-tier local authorities should become unitaries. There's about 9 pages on that. The government set 6 criteria on which to make a determination on the most appropriate local government structure for any area. These were outlined in the Cabinet Papers, page 16, and were discussed in detail in the Deloitte report, which you've all had a copy and a chance to read. The advisory group have also been given all the information and all the background on to be able to be sent to each of your particular groups. The Deloitte report looked at this in detail and came to the conclusion at the end that a two-unitary solution was the best. And I say for the purposes of this debate, we're being asked to state the preference in principle on which to progress to engagement. Following the engagement exercise, additional research in relation to the disaggregation of services will be undertaken, and the Cabinet and the Council will be asked to determine the Council's final position in November, having seen all that data. It has been made clear in the White Paper that the importance of the strategic authority. This is absolutely crucial. The West Midlands Combined Authority has made it quite clear that there will not be a strategic authority for this authority. They've done that in writing as well as verbally. Without the West Midlands Combined Authority option, we have to consider other options. A Warwickshire County Council strategic authority is one option, but that precludes two unitary solution because you are not allowed to have a strategic authority that is the same as a one unitary authority. So we have to look at other options. And these are to work with our neighbouring authorities. And this is where North and South have been able to look at what their neighbouring authorities are and whether or not they could work as a strategic authority if, for example, the Warwickshire County Council is not on the table either. It would mean looking in different directions to their nearest neighbours. So the North Authority would obviously look north to Staffordshire. I don't think that would suit the economic or other criteria, community criteria that we would look for in the south. The south would obviously look for their nearest neighbours, including Worcestershire. That may not please those in the north. So we've got to look at all of those options. A great deal of background material is in the Deloitte report. I say the 6 criteria are particularly useful for you to be able to look at. I do hope you've had the chance to be able to look at the Deloitte report and see those 6 criteria. One is about how a single unitary model should, what the size would be and how it would advocate for differences in economic focus across the whole of the area, both north and south.
Councillor Junod, you have 30 seconds.
And then the other one is about partnership, but the most crucial one is about communities, and it's about communities and keeping local government local. So I will pause at that moment, but then come back at a later stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Junod. So do I have a seconder to this? Thank you, Councillor Coucher. Before we go into a debate, I will remind you of the recommended words that have come from Cabinet to Council, that the 2 unitary model as outlined by the Deloitte's report be endorsed as the preferred option for the purposes of local public engagement prior to a final decision being taken by the Council to be presented to Government in November 2025. Are there any members who wish to speak? Thank you. I call upon Councillor Darren Pemberton, please. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Debating the future of governance in Warwickshire is not new for us. A merger with Warwick District Council also raised concerns about democratic deficit and remoteness of decision-making from residents. The key difference today is that the decision is not in our own hands. The Council will vote on a preferred option upon which it will engage residents, but crucially the final decision will be made solely by the Labour government. We must be clear about this with residents to avoid the risk of further undermining the trust many have for politics at national and local level by giving the impression that a majority expressing a particular wish will have that view respected and enacted. Members should act in the best interests of their residents and communities and nothing else. So for the avoidance of doubt, there is no Conservative line on this issue at District Council level. Historically favouring the North-South model, based on the information before me today, I now support a single unitary council as providing the best outcome for our residents. Deloitte's report is clear. On savings alone, a unitary wins, but suggests this is outweighed by better outcomes being achieved through localised services. Light on detailed supporting evidence, I expect other members will speak to the report in more detail. Savings are unlikely to be realised in any unitary model for 5 to 10 years. Those of us who've been through mergers and acquisitions know savings are always overstated and usually take longer to deliver. A South Warwickshire unitary will not by definition mean more accountability. Residents in many of our rural communities already feel remote from the decision-making process, and any unitary council will need to build new local accountability structures to overcome this. For my residents, it's about delivering better services that make a real and positive
difference to their lives. And here's the thing. If county council services were currently being delivered at district level, and we were talking about super services, the one-size-fits-all and so fits no argument, nobody argument would have huge weight. But that's not the case. For me, the thing that concerns me most is the impact on adult and child social care and SEND services. In Warwickshire, 68 pence in every pound goes on social care and SEND. Children's services are rated as good. The SEND service has made significant strides between the 21 and 23 inspections, with a great increase seen in positive children's outcomes. My previous day job, working for a leading provider of occupational therapy services to English local authorities, means I've seen the challenges facing large and small authorities up close, and I've seen no evidence on the ground that smaller is better in actually delivering good outcomes, particularly in some of the areas highlighted by the proponents of a true unitary model. Social care and SEND services will be disaggregated. Effective delivery, outcomes and service improvements will be affected by the inevitable organisational upheaval by a change to a true unitary model. This will introduce differences and priorities on views on how best to deliver services, because we are told the north and south are seemingly so different. That risks delivering worse outcomes for our most vulnerable residents in the long term as services try to serve two masters. Which brings me to resident engagement. At last week's Cabinet, Councillor Curtis told me his residents were extremely well informed about unitary councils and the benefits of a north-south when he's spoken to them on the doorstep. Councillor Coucher concurred with that view. And I'm not seeking to dig either of you out, but the vast majority of our residents are fortunate enough never to have needed to engage with those life-affecting services of social care and SEND. The voice of vulnerable service users risks being drowned out by the pull of keeping services and democracy local argument, voiced by the sheer weight of numbers of residents whose only exposure to council services may be bin collection or highway repairs. With a little bit of maths, there are about 800 families who might be affected by SEND across the South Warwickshire Unitary Council. That's about 0.22% of our resident population. So for me, public engagement must ensure that the views and experiences of our most vulnerable residents are heard and given weight, whilst at the same time ensuring our more fortunate residents have some appreciation of the risks of damage to the services they themselves may never actually use. So I ask the leader to commit today to ensuring that the engagement exercise finds a way to help residents who are users of social care and/or SEND services to be specifically engaged so that their life experiences and views on how these services are best delivered are represented. This will ensure the widest engagement to include the most marginalised in our communities to inform the Council's approach. I would finally also ask the leader to approach other districts and boroughs to adopt the same approach to any resident engagement exercise they may undertake. Regardless of what model we think is best, unitary government is coming to Warwickshire. We must make it work for residents, and I commit myself to doing exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. Councillor Petrovich.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay? I, as I'm sure every other member is too, am very aware of the immense importance of this recommendation that will further set in motion the changes that will not only affect our generation, but also the next generation's way in which community and local governance will operate. That is why, whilst I am in favour of the recommendation to have as a preferred option two unitary authorities in Warwickshire, I do so with a sense of responsibility and awareness that many of my residents, as Councillor Pemberton also said, are somewhat sceptical and wary about the entire process. The message I have heard in recent weeks when I spoke to my residents is a lack of confidence in how these decisions are being made. Residents are worried that this is another central government-driven reorganization that will happen to them, not with them. And I have to say, I share that concern. And I want to be honest about the fact that in the government's own current approach to local government reform, such as the recently launched Surrey unitarisation proposal, residents weren't even made statutory consultees. That should alarm us all. It sends a signal that local people's views could be considered as an optional extras, not essential foundations of this reform. So I believe we need to send a strong message that this won't be the case for us. If we are serious about representing our residents, we need to ensure their voices are not only heard, but central to this process. So I think it is essential that we build a consultation and strong case in a way that protects local democracy, improves services, and earns public trust. In terms of services that mean most to our residents, there are some areas that are being particularly commonly raised, such as adult social care, and also the implications of the tax harmonization. A key concern that has been raised with me is that the Deloitte report outlines low to max council tax harmonization, yet doesn't actually explain what this means in terms of revenue. If Stratford residents will be paying more to manage the highest rates elsewhere, where does that additional money go? How much extra will be generated each year? And why is this significant revenue uplift not accounted for in the benefits analysis? Are we talking about efficiency savings of 17.8 million for the two-unitary, plus substantial new council tax income? And if so, this reform actually, with the two-unitary proposal, may be more financially beneficial than presented. But that's exactly why we need to be really meticulous and continue to diligently work to make sure that we can provide this information to residents as we go through this process.
30 seconds, Councillor Petrovich.
Thank you. So the other challenge, that social care, I was very encouraged that actually the most recently published District Council Network's report showed that there are many benefits and ways in which this integrating can be done to benefit the smaller authorities. So whilst I'm very happy that this council is looking to support its unitary solution, because I believe that evidence genuinely offers the best, unitary is the best route to better services, I think we need to be very transparent and must assure that this reform is done not to communities, but with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Petrovich. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Chair. Warwickshire is a large and diverse county, but it's not a single homogenous place. The needs of Shipston on Stour on the edge of the Cotswolds are vastly different to that of our colleagues in Nuneaton in the north. A one-size-fits-all model simply does not work for a county of ours at this size. A move to unitarise the entire county of Warwickshire risks stripping power away from communities and forcing together areas with no shared identity. I believe the residents we all represent in Stratford District will be best served by South Warwickshire Unitary Council, and I'm very pleased to endorse that the Council will be using this going forward in the consultation period. So combining a Stratford and Warwickshire district rather than a centralised super unitary covering the whole county is supported by the evidence base of the report. The independent Deloitte's report finds that a two-unitary model is better suited to Warwickshire's divided economic, social and geographical landscape, and it offers a more tailored services, stronger community engagement and more effective devolution. We should be building local government that brings decision-making closer to people, not pushing it further away. So let's empower our communities with a structure that reflects the way people actually live their lives, and this means backing the case for a South Warwickshire unitary to keep the local in local government and providing a great consensus from this council to show to government that, that what we need is a South Warwickshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Chair, and good luck with your first meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This has been raised at OSC a few times, and I spoke at Cabinet. And I think what is noticeable was in the report there's a commitment to share information between the districts and boroughs and the county council. And I think that commitment hasn't been taken as far as it should be. From a scrutiny point of view, I think the report is vague and lacks detail and glosses over certain areas such as SEND, children and adult social care, highways, fire and rescue, something which I know about. I do think this information needs to be taken. You know, we all talk about a north and a south unitary, but take fire and rescue, for example. Mr. Brooke, the Chief Fire Officer, uses the flexibility of the size of Warwickshire to move fire engines all around the county, giving them that flexibility. And I'm not sure how this will be dealt with under a North and South Warwickshire unitary. For example, the training centre, the new one that's been opened in Rugby, would be in North unitary. So would there be some agreement to use that? Certainly I agree with Councillor Petrovic. The bottom line is, I think, that Labour government will make the decision based on savings, particularly in the light of many recent U-turns that have caused a significant black hole, which varies from 22 billion to 40 billion or 60 billion, whichever we go it is. Inflation certainly is hitting the black hole as well. I imagine that the County Council report will favour a single unitary. If anybody else wants to have a bet on me with that, I'm the man. I'll be Crump bookmakers here will be willing to take any bets on that. One thing I think we sort of haven't been mentioned, and we talked about it at Cabinet, or the review from OSC at Cabinet, is the timescale for the engagement period. We think it needs to be clearer and potentially conducted as much as possible outside of school holidays. And I do appreciate we have got a short timeline on this, so whatever can be done on this. So if there could be an update on this when we have that as well. But yeah,
30 seconds, Councillor Crump.
Thank you. I was just about to finish, Councillor off. So on that note, yes, I will be won't be voting on with the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crump. Councillor Hatch.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chairman. The Green Group echo many concerns that have been mentioned here today. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is this is called a devolution bill, and we still don't really understand what powers are going to be devolved, so we're quite keen to find out what they are. And also the democratic deficit has been mentioned, and so in discussions we are very keen that the number of councillors is as many as possible and the divisions are as small as possible in whichever option goes forward. We support the two unitary authority approach because we believe that there will be less democratic deficit than a single whole county unitary authority. There's been concern mentioned about, splitting the services, specifically adult health and social care, and highways is another one that people have concerned about. But I would like to point out that they're already organised in local working groups, those two services, and in a two unitary approach there would still be partnerships operating with our neighbours. So I think that is all I want to add on that, but yeah, we support a two unitary approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hatch. Councillor Bromwich.
Yeah, if we were very sensible in the world of local government, we wouldn't even be debating this today, because I think most people would agree that big authorities have simply never been shown to work. And I have spoken at length of residents in Southall, and they look at any proposals, whether it's a North-South Warwickshire unitary or Warwickshire unitary, linked in with mayoral authorities, they look at it with horror because they see it taking away their actual local accountability. And I think actually this Labour government has been disgusting in the way it's tried to railroad this through. I think unfortunately, it doesn't matter what we say here today, they've probably already made a decision that it's not based on what we want or what we really need as communities. But to just give you some insight here, as some of the councillors will know, I sent some emails around, especially in concern of SEND needs, social care and that. SEND needs very important to me. Most of you will know I foster 2 kids, 17 now they are, both send children. But before that, what most of you will not know is that I was a SEND kid. I experienced all that firsthand. And as I grew up, I experienced the social care aspect for adults with my grandmother. I know how difficult resources are for all of that. And it's not just a new thing, it's happened over many years. When we start separating out these departments and getting these pots even smaller, that becomes more problematic. The whole system is broken and it's going to be lumped onto local government, whichever form of unitary, because central government simply don't want to deal with it. That worries me about the future of those sort of things. But there's more to it than that. When we look at these unitaries, they're going to be linked in with mayors. Look at the powers that central government are looking to put into those mayors. It's going to be very disturbing. In effect, these unitaries could become no more than glorified parish councils with some extra services. And I don't think people are realising, and nationally, organised press are not realising the impact this will have on communities across the country. It seeks to strip that democratic accountability they claim they want to devolve. In effect, you're going to have a handful of mayors with huge amounts of powers.
30 seconds, Councillor Bromwich.
Today, I am not going to vote either way on this because I'm representing my residents' views and we don't think either option is a very good option. But I think we can all agree that this is beyond party politics and we will continue to fight for the best for our residents, regardless of today's vote.
Thank you, Councillor Bromwich. Councillor Holmes, do you have a point of order?
Yes, I was just wondering if we'd be able to get a recorded vote on this item at all. Thank you.
Yes, you can, if I have a seconder for that.
I'll second that.
Councillor Alcock, that's fine, thank you. We'll take that at the end of the debate, thank you. Councillor Couch, do you have a point there? Thank you. No, you're seconding, so you can speak later. Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair. My concern with this whole thing that's come up is that when local council changes, so does the local councillor. In my ward, I live there, I work there, my kids went to school there, I volunteer there, and I socialise there. So I know what is going on in that area because though there's a lot of houses, it's actually quite a condensed area. So I know what's going on. My concern is you go to a very large unitary, then every councillor has a very large area to cover and you lose that. And the only people who suffer in that situation are the residents. Vulnerable residents, that as councillors we already know about. Residents who might not know where to go for a situation. They can be told by neighbours. Have somebody faceless coming into a large area and residents will suffer and they will suffer in quite a big way. So it's very much echo what Councillor Hatch said, is you've got to have the person who is local in the local area. You can talk about how costs are going to change and how pots of money are going to be divvied up. And it's quite sad that actually that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to council tax, our residents having to rise. It's going to come down to the arguments of services. And I know that there are services that are currently not quite hitting the mark that need to do better. And SEND is a big one in my ward and for residents that I look after almost on a daily basis. So I'm very happy to endorse this, Chair, because I do think it is the only way we can do the best for our residents for the services that we can provide. So, yes, I will be supporting this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alcock. Councillor Coucher, would you like to speak now or towards the end as you're the seconder? It's entirely up to you.
I'll speak at the end.
Thank you very much. In which case, Councillor... Councillor Littlewood.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say that I've been on the working group with regard to this, so it's been clear to me from the beginning that the preference for this administration has been the two unitary authority level, although I accept that both a single and a bi-unitary authority proposal was put forward as possible ways forward. Much has been made about the need for a bi-unitary authority, north and south, as it were, because the communities are different. Well, I'd say that diversity is very important and to be applauded. In fact, diversity of economy for an area, a region, is essential. The markets don't change. The markets do change, they don't stay static. Demands change, and a diverse economy is one that is healthy and resilient and sustainable. So I don't buy the argument that the communities are different. With regards to Councillor Alcock's well-made point about representation, I think that's absolutely right. But in this proposal for a single unitary authority, I do not see that that changes very much to what we have now. As I understand it, it is possible that under a single unitary authority, the divisions which now exist would, in the county council would probably be replicated. And it would be quite possible to have, where necessary and populations are such and geography is such, that you could have a dual councillor representation. That's got that has precedent, so there's not to be argued about. So I think overall the most important thing, and I mean, if you read today's letter, and thank you to Mr. Buckland for forwarding the letter from the Secretary of State, sorry, I beg your pardon, the Minister of State, that it's quite clear that finance is a primary concern. And indeed, if we look at paragraphs 5 and 6 on page 4 of that letter, you will see quite clearly what the intent is and what will happen if we don't come up with a response that, as borough councils, district councils and county councils, doesn't meet their needs. So I think we, again, to quote others in the past,
20 seconds.
Thank you. If we don't make a decision in the way in which we are expected to make a decision, it will be done unto us. So for that reason, I will not be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. I listened very carefully to what people have said, and there's some very, very valid arguments made by a lot of people. And actually, I agree with some of them, some I don't, unfortunately. I've worked in the public service for over 40 years, and I think we have a few problems we've got to be really aware of. Warwickshire, we keep talking about being a large authority. It's actually quite a small authority in some ways, and it gets the funding to match. And Councillor Crump has done a fantastic job trying to get an underfunded fire service to work. And the plan does work, but it's a high-risk plan, which I think we all know. Small police forces, small fire services are always going to be at risk because they are underfunded. We do have to think about the disaggregation of services, but we also have to think about solutions. One of the solutions is we combine things. The key to this, for me, is where are we going to go for a strategic authority? Because if we have a decent sized strategic authority, they will be getting the funding that we don't get now and we never will get. So whether we make it bigger or smaller, the key thing really for me is we go for a proper strategic authority and proper plans. When it comes to the local voice in my part of South Warwickshire is quite interesting because a lot of them want to go back to Gloucestershire where they used to be. And I've looked at the people who've said that, And I thought, actually, that's quite strange, because my part of Warwickshire became Warwickshire in 1931. So there's very few of the people who've got a living memory of being part of Gloucestershire. So sometimes what people say is more anecdotal than true. But I do believe that we should move to a smaller authority, because local services work. Local services are easier to maintain, and they're easier to spot when they go wrong. For things like the police and the fire service, we may have to look at a larger authority. And what happens when you've got an authority that's got not the right size? I used to live in Tring. And in Tring, if you phone for an ambulance, 75% of the ambulances that turned up on time would be from Buckinghamshire.
30 seconds, Councillor Brown.
And a very similar thing happened with the fire service. Most of the incidents that were serious were supported by Buckinghamshire. Buckinghamshire weren't very happy about it. Now they've got a unitary authority, they had to take into account the fact they had to provide services over the border. So basically, I support the smaller authority because I think it's easier, but we have to do the right thing about the strategic authority. Go with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. My view on this matter hasn't materially changed from the view I expressed a few months back, and that's basically I'm a one Warwickshire person. Quite simply, I think Warwickshire as one unitary may be better served than breaking it up into two smaller unitaries. The notion of a more local unitary closer to residents has some attraction, but no matter how the unitary or unitaries are formed, it would appear that democracy may suffer, and that it or they will be more remote from residents, and residents will feel that their voices won't be heard anymore, especially those with mobility issues, special needs, social care, the elderly, the sick, those that need help from the authority in one form or another, for anything from a car park permit to those needing more complex help and advice. However, this will be an issue whichever route is taken, because even in a two unitary situation, there is no guarantee that, for instance, the council will be based here in Stratford-upon-Avon. You have to remember that one of the arguments that comes up on a regular basis is that the Far East, Southam, already feel that they're not listened to, they're forgotten, and that SDC is too remote from them. Whilst I have no great issue on the documents being put to residents for consultation, it's essential that a balanced approach is taken and that residents are fully informed that documents are as accurate as possible and not filled with pie-in-the-sky forecasts that show the land of milk and honey awaits. This is simply not the case. In my opinion, the best solution is keep it as simple as possible. Don't mend what is not broken. As I said right at the beginning, I am basically a one Warwickshire man, but I am a realist, and I'll make my final decision once I've seen both presentations. I'll make my decision based on what appears, and there's the key word, appears, to be the best option for residents as a whole. I will not make my decision today. I want to hear from residents about their thoughts and fears, and I want to see the county's case and see if that stacks up. We need to be laying the facts in front of residents, not fiction, not inflated projections, not unrealistic claims of everything will be far better under one approach or the other, but the facts, so that they are fully informed as possible, and that doesn't mean hundreds of pages of documents.
30 seconds, Councillor Shenton.
It's about the facts, keeping it simple, avoiding jargon, setting out the realistic pros and cons, engaging with residents through local roadshows so they can make an informed decision on whether one unitary or two unitary option could meet their aspirations. Playing politics with people's lives on this scale rarely ends well for residents. It's about taking a measured and realistic view. So as I say, I will be reserving my decision today. I will wait to see what the other option is. So I will be abstaining in today's vote.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to speak very briefly. I think it was Councillor Littlewood that put the willies up me, frankly, and made me put my hand up. He mentioned. Yeah. He mentioned about keeping the same divisions as we've got today, and I think you know, everyone has spoken today about the need to represent residents, and of course we all represent, I don't know, 1,500 houses, you know, 3,000 odd people, whatever it is, and in that you don't know everybody, obviously, but you do just know a lot of people in your communities, and the thought of trying to represent people, and there are people here who are double hatters or already county councillors, I guess, who have already been in this position whereby when you're covering a significantly larger area, you don't have that luxury of knowing the detail as you do as a district councillor. And so, you know, when I think and I hear this debate, all I'm really caring about is the division going to be small enough that we can actually do the work to represent our residents, and the notion of a multi-councillor ward I just find boggling. I don't wear a watch, but if I did wear a watch, I would always know what the time is, and if I wore 2 watches, I would never know what the time is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hatch, you spoke, I presume, on behalf of the Green Party. Would you like to speak again, or would you like Councillor Passingham to speak again? You do have 3 minutes.
Right, thank you. Most of what's been said, you know, most of what can be said has been said, but to me the priority is the democracy involved. Calling this a devolution bill is a travesty, really, because we all know that power is going to go up, it's not going to come down. So we've got to make the best decision about which is the best for democracy and for our residents. And the unitary authority will mean that there will be a strategic authority above that. So Warwickshire would have to become a strategic authority with Leicestershire, with Oxfordshire, or somewhere else, Worcestershire, Herefordshire, places a long way away. And the mayor and his assembly, I think he'll have a few people advising him from the different councils, will have an awful lot of power. So to me, the best solution for us in terms of democracy is to have a 2 unitary authority, to have a strategic authority, or whatever it's called. I think it might be called something differently, with or without a mayor. But then the decisions will be made closer to the community. But a lot of this will be the devil in the detail. Really, it would be ideal if the town and parish councils had more power locally then, in all sorts of ways. We don't know what powers they're going to get. So we are all in a bit in the dark with this, but certainly at the moment, the prospect of a unitary Warwickshire is the worst option, and 2 unitaries and a strategic Warwickshire looks the better for democracy.
Thank you. Councillor Keithley.
Thanks, Chair. Well, there's been some really interesting debate about this and some interesting views, and I felt I wanted to say something in response to the suggestion from some of the councillors, particularly Councillor Pemberton, Littlewood and Crump, about this being really going to be determined come down to savings. Councillor Pemberton said on savings alone a single unitary wins. Councillor Crump said Labour will make the decision based on savings. Councillor Littlewood said that finance is the primary concern. Well, we've used Deloitte to prepare some information for us so that we can make a really good assessment of this very, very difficult decision that we're about to make. And as I read the report, Deloitte came up with a response to the government's criteria, of which there were about half a dozen. And if I remember rightly, the only, if you like, failure to meet the criteria and the benefit of going with a single unitary was based on finance. But I had a close look at finance, and I had a look at the cost of the services that are provided by the county and the 5 boroughs. And and I, like Councillor Pemberton, he spoke about working in business when you're dealing with mergers and acquisitions, integration, transition, and the costs of those post-merger integrations, which are always significant. There's always a whole load of uncertainties. Often you find things you didn't expect as savings, but then you find that savings that you expected to get just don't appear. And what I took out of the Deloitte report, frankly, was that the savings, I just caveat this because I know that we're going to do some more work on this. I know that there's some deeper diving to do in respect to these savings. But what I took out that Deloitte report was those savings they project between the 2 options of unitary, 2 unitaries or single unitary, just a few million quid. Right? And that's a few million quid per year when the costs of transition are probably 30 or more over a considerable period of time. And the costs of our services combined are over £1 billion. So you're talking about savings that are well under half of 1%. And they could,
30 seconds.
They could dematerialise without any problem at all. So I think that the case that's put for a 2 unitary, I'm quite happy to support. I think it provides a greater certainty of the quality of services for our residents locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keithley. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. Yes, I'd actually like to mirror some of the points that Councillor Keithley just made. As far as I'm concerned, we have an evidence base here which is independent and has considered a number of the factors that are critical for making this initial assessment. And that certainly makes me feel comfortable with going with a 2 unitary approach. I think looking at the way in which we will deliver public services, which is very distinct from sort of private enterprise, we will have value for money in the way in which we have that within the geographic confines that we're looking at in terms of the north and south. We have the way in which we look at rural districts in comparison to urban ones is significant. We can't ignore that, but also we need to look at the way in which the strategic authorities will play such a significant role in this. This has been touched on quite a lot, and I don't deign to know what the Labour government's thinking. I don't think any of us do. But that's where a lot of these questions will be answered. It's unsettling that we don't have as much handle on those reins as we would like. But I do welcome some of the voices I've heard across the chamber with regards to community engagement. I think that's a pivotal aspect of where we go from here. We have these initial findings, and that's what will allow us to really engage with our residents. I know we have been already. I certainly have. I know a lot of members across the chamber have as well. And indeed, point 6 on one of the criteria of the consultation is community engagement. So I think these are all pivotal aspects that allow us to move forwards from this point. We do have fundamental aspects that still remain to be seen what the outcome will be. We have to rely on government for that. But for now, I'm very happy to support South Warwickshire and North Warwickshire unitaries, and we'll see how we get on with the strategic discussions from there on out.
Thank you. Before I go back to Councillor Pemberton, Councillor Coucher and Councillor Juned, do I have any other speakers? Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. The way forward for either 1 or 2 unitaries, as far as I'm concerned, is very much about a head or a heart scenario. On the face of it, I can totally understand why there is views in this chamber urging towards a 2 unitary, particularly from a geographic basis. But actually, my big concern is about how we can squeeze a quart out of a pint pot in terms of the services we provide, adult social care, SEND, children's services, the police, and also fire services. I personally believe that we need greater information to be making an informed decision today. As someone in previous life who commissioned various independent reports from the Big Four 30, 40 years ago. Much, of course, was dependent on the brief that we gave them. And where I'm standing here today, I feel that this whole subject needs to be harnessed with great care, because if we're not careful, or we need to be careful for what we could actually wish for. And on that basis, I don't feel I have sufficient information in front of me to vote either with the motion or against it, and therefore will be abstaining today. And I thank you for your understanding in that respect.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Any further comments from anyone? Councillor Rock.
Chair, it's just an observation that I just wanted to say this is one of the most thoughtful discussions I've witnessed in this council chamber. I think everybody that's spoken has spoken very thoughtfully about it, and it's just an observation I wanted to make, and I won't say anything else, but I just wanted to thank everybody that's spoken, because I thought everybody's thinking it through, so it's really great.
Do you have a point of order, Councillor?
Yes, at the start you did say that independents would be accorded the same privileges as leaders of their political parties. For a second follow-up.
Councillor Bromwich, would you like another 3 minutes to say something?
Yes, certainly. So again, I concur with Councillor Rock. It's been a fantastic debate today, and I think if we're realistic, regardless of any political persuasion, we all pretty much sing off the same hymn sheet on this today. I think it's important that throughout the whole process between now and November, that we try and work as one. We don't have all the facts in front of us, that is very clear, because we don't have the county side of a report. We only have a district council, the report commissioned district council. But we've got to keep working forward together. There cannot be political point scoring out of this, because this is not about us as politicians, this is about the residents now. And I think it's important, whichever way the vote goes, that we still push for what is best for the residents. I pretty much suspect the county will come up and say, yep, a county unitary is a wonderful idea. Just as the Deutsche report has come and said, North-South is a wonderful idea. Personally, I think they're both terrible ideas, but central government tells us otherwise. What we cannot do is to allow central government to try and ride roughshod over us. And this government has shown in the past 12 months that it makes rash decisions and then ends up backtracking and costing lots of money. That should not be at our local taxpayers' expense. We need to hold them to account throughout the whole process. We need to be forceful with them throughout the whole process. We need to make sure that regardless of political persuasion, we act in the best interests of our residents and we get the best possible outcome for our residents. As I said earlier, I will be abstaining today because I don't fundamentally believe in big councils. But I agree that we try and work to the best we can. And whatever the decisions are in the future, that we continue to work together to get the best whatever we can for our residents.
Thank you. Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you, Chair. Not for the first time I find myself agreeing with Councillor Rock and Councillor Bromwich. Members, a metaphorical pat on the back. This has been a thoughtful and interesting and valued debate, and members have legitimately taken different views based on the information they get from their residents and their own experiences. And that's a good thing. What I've picked up from the debate, let's be honest, the Labour government are doing this to us. You wouldn't start from here. The Chief Exec suggested that, you know, a Royal Commission would have been the best way forward, and moving, if you're going to change local government, do the whole thing. But no, we are where we are. And I think we have to understand that whilst we will lobby as hard as we can, Angela Rayner and Jim McMahon will ultimately make this decision. But in this room, we're all clear we're going to make this thing work for the best of our abilities for residents. It is legitimate and right for the administration to come to a view and to have a public engagement on that view. And the timing is what it is because of the timetable. By no means not perfect, but it is what it is. Those of us who take different views on this, those are legitimate points of view. I would repeat my call that I would like for us to find a way to ensure that the service users, particularly affected by adult social care and SEN, we find a way to ensure we capture their experiences to inform the debate. On that basis, some of us are on a smaller group where we've been getting updates, so we may know stuff that you guys don't, particularly that there is a piece of research report coming forward around adult social care and SEND services. And I want to see that before I come to my final view. As John Maynard Keynes says, when the facts change, I change my view. What do you do, sir? So I do not rule out changing my view, but I want to see the People 2 report, first of all. So as we stand today, I'm going to abstain, but only because I want to see the People 2 report. That would probably be the key piece of info for me about those services. We should respect each other's views, and we have shown we can do so today. We should go out to our residents, give them as much information as we can, set out the preferred option, and it's legitimate when asked for our own views on the matter, and encourage residents to respond. That's the big thing we've got to do. Get them to respond. Make them understand it's an engagement, not a final decision. And then let's come back and see, when we've got all of the evidence at the end of the year, where the whole thing lands. But I do want to finally just finish by thanking you all, because I think this has probably been, I'd say this is the best debate in this sort of term, if you will, since the elections in May 23. I think it's been a good debate. I think you've all made great contributions, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. Councillor Coucher.
Thank you, Chair. I think we all agree we wouldn't start from here. And frankly, a more competent government would be actually reforming care, as we've asked for endlessly, and also dealing with SEND. At the moment, our SEND service in this county is broken, and our county's finances are prejudiced by a statutory override at the moment. So trying to defend what we've got at the moment is frankly not the way to go. It's very clear from the English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill that's published that this government is very much looking, not necessarily to devolve as much, but actually to take things up into a statutory combined authority. And it's vitally important for this council and for Warwickshire that we choose the right collaboration in relation to that. The West Midlands Combined Authority is not available to us. And frankly, I would be horrified if a single Warwickshire was going to be combined with Staffordshire or Leicestershire or other counties further north. That would be our worst scenario. At least with the South Warwickshire, we can actually, I think, with some reasonable position, talk to Gloucestershire or Worcestershire or Oxfordshire on something which would be rather more coherent for us. One thing I would say is I'm really pleased at how this council has worked with the other districts in coming forward with the Deloitte's report, an independent study, which has, I think, got some information on finances, but I think we've got certainly more work to do in that relationship. And I was very interested when my colleague Councillor Curtis asked the question on the County Council about your financial studies, to say it was an internal report that they had done. I have to say, I don't feel that had quite the same credibility as what we have done. So in conclusion, I think the best solution at the moment is very much the two-tier. We need to make sure that we have, the two unitary, and we need to obviously flesh that out. We need to obviously look at how we're going to address key issues. Send is a good example. What is seen in the press today is desperately need to have more special schools. I'm very concerned that if we're a single county, those special schools will be provided in the north of the county and not down here. At least South Warwickshire would have control over that. Similarly, in relation to fire and rescue, we already have got collaborative arrangements with other fire authorities around us, and there's no reason at all why two couldn't work here. So I think there's a very good, cogent argument to be put forward for a South Warwickshire Unitary Authority, and I would endorse that and encourage all members to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. Councillor Juned.
Thank you very much for a really balanced debate today. I certainly agree with those people that said we wouldn't start from here, because I think district councils have served us well. However, we are where we are. Not only have we got this, but we will be made to take a choice on this with the new legislation that's coming through. It's interesting to actually reflect that there are 130 single-tier authorities across the country. 62% of the country's population is covered by single-tier unitary authorities, including 60 outside metropolitans and London boroughs. Our neighbour, Solihull, has been a unitary since 1986, and it's worth having a look. I've actually made it my kind of, used my time quite considerably on looking at research and reports. Not only have I looked at academic research such as that done by Professors Copus and Leach, but I've attended numerous webinars. Some of them have been organised by government, but I've also attended webinars organised by the DCN and by the Local Government Association and others. I've also made it my job to speak to chief executives and leaders of councils right the way across the country that have been through the process. And I've been able to ask a lot of questions about the ways they've handled the process and the sharing of services, the disaggregation of services, or whether or not they've been able to combine services across many councils, or whether indeed they've been able to locally design specific schemes to fit with other services such as the NHS. And further work will be done by this council on the best options that will serve our residents and communities. One particular webinar I attended was about the report that was done by the District Council Network on social care and social care reform, and I attended their webinar as well and was able to ask questions. Now, that report looked at both shared services, existing provision in smaller unitaries that have been recently done, but also in existing arrangements in smaller unitaries that have been in place for some years. And they looked also at disaggregation of adult social care and adult social services. Another webinar is to be organised on our children's services and education services, and Councillor Coles will attend that. All of that information has to be taken on board before we make our final decision. But we now have to take a decision not only on strategic authority, remember that is a key part, but also make sure that we engage with the public so that we can come back when we've got all that data and make a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Junod. Before we go to the procedure for a recorded vote, I'd like to echo other councillors' comments. I think the debate has been incredibly well informed and it's been very interesting, so thank you for that. And mostly you've all kept within time, mostly. David.
Yeah, thank you. So, a request for a recorded vote on this matter, which means I'll be calling your name out one at a time. And if you could please indicate at that point, I'm talking to our newbies mainly, if you could indicate whether you're voting for, against or abstaining. And that is in relation to the recommendation that came from the Cabinet. So I'll just for completeness read that out again. That the two unitary model, as outlined by the Deloitte's report, be endorsed as a preferred option for the purposes of local public engagement prior to a final decision being made, taken by the Council to be presented to the Government in November 2025. I'll be doing that in alphabetical order, but starting with the Chair of Council, Councillor Rolfe.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Rice.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Adam.
4.
Councillor Alcock.
4.
Councillor Ballinger.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Bromwich.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Coles.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Coucher.
4.
Councillor Crump.
Abstain.
Councillor Eden.
4.
Councillor Fleming.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Fradgley.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
4.
Councillor Gist.
4.
Councillor Grocott.
4.
Councillor Harvey.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Hatch.
4.
Councillor Hedges-Herefin.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
4.
Councillor Johnston.
4.
Councillor Junid.
4.
Councillor Keithley.
4.
Councillor Littlewood.
Abstain.
Councillor Mills.
Against.
Councillor Organ.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Parry.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Passingham.
4.
Councillor Pemberton.
Abstain.
Councillor Petrovic.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Rock.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Scorer.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Shenton.
Abstain.
Thank you. And that's it, because we have apologies for Councillor Stanley and Molly Hawkins. So, Chair, that's 23 votes for, 1 against, with 10 abstentions. Thank you. So that's carried.
Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Councillor, it's 3:30. Would you like a 5-minute comfort break? Okay, 5 minutes. I want...
altogether.
Councillors, we're going to start. Thank you. We go on to item 8 on the agenda is minute 118 from the Cabinet meeting on the 7th of July 2025 regarding the notice of motion, private management companies operating public open spaces, flood alleviation schemes and estate roads. I invite Councillor Coucher to introduce this
Point
report.
of order, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. I just would like to declare interest on this item as I work for the Office of MP. In that role, I have been liaising with a number of management company representatives. Thank you.
I believe, Chair, I believe that was just a declaration of interest, and that's absolutely fine in the circumstances.
Councillor Pemberton.
In the guise of transparency, I've been working on the same thing with Councillor Petrovic and the MP, so the same interest applies, but I don't think it's prejudicial in any way.
Thank you. Councillor Coucher.
Chair, this issue remains of very significant concern, I think, to most members of this authority and to many residents within Stratford District. Clearly, we have got our SBD in place in relation to how we're going to deal with future arrangements, and our Chief Executive has outlined how that will work going forward. But obviously, we do have a lot of existing concerns, and that is, I think, the whole reason for this notice of motion. And I'm pleased to say that the Cabinet, at their recent decision, took the decision that they should support the setting up of a task and finish group by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to investigate, report and identify solutions in respect of private management companies operating public open spaces, flood alleviation schemes and estate roads across the district. With 1316 of the remit as detailed within the agenda report, being a lower priority to enable focus on the other areas within the initial scope. There were 6 reasons within the report, one of which it would be extremely difficult to do within 3 months, and that is why that is given a lower priority. But generally, the Cabinet very happy about setting up a task and finish group with membership not necessarily from ONS, and we hope to get a report from that within 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coucher. Oh, is this a point of order, Councillor? May I just ask for a seconder, please, first of all? Thank you, Councillor Fradgley. Any members? Thank you. So, any members wish to speak on this subject, please? Thank you. Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you. It was really just to thank the officers and Cabinet for considering and agreeing to the setting up of this group. It was a motion supported by the leader, so it reflects across the chamber concerns about the issue. I note the Chief Executive's points of clarification, which were always clear to me at the setup about the legal position. I remain one of life's half-full people, and I think hopefully we can build a toolkit that will help members push existing management companies as hard as possible to deliver better. And so I'm glad to see this is set up, and look forward to the group starting its work as soon as is practically possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. Councillor Petrovic.
Thank you. I would like to echo what's been said in terms of welcoming this recommendation, and will be voting in favour of it. One of the things that I just wanted to note is on the point around the supplementary planning guidance and how developers are encouraged to offer the open space to town and parishes and district councils. What I would like to see this task and finish group also then consider is to see how we then, once those developers do come to us, operationalise that and actually make a recommendation as to what this council's position should be in terms of adopting those spaces that have been offered to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just welcome this. Welcome the invitation from Cabinet to scrutiny to form a task and finish group on this. Obviously, my views on this, it should be mainly formed from members of the OSC, but we welcome some extra members who are not part of OSC forming part of the task and finish group to add their areas of expertise. A couple of things on this. We spoke about this at OSC, and we feel that it is, even without with the removal of number 6, there are still many things to talk about, and I genuinely feel that a full report within 3 months is optimistic. Personally, I would be happy that the committee produces an interim report within the 3 months timescale and then a fuller report at a later date. And that's not prevaricating, but I still think because we've still got a not tightened enough down remit, in my opinion, that the work is challenging. We're also acknowledging the fact that officers, particularly those who support task and finish groups and democratic services, have other options, other workloads as well. Most noticeably, all the work to do with local government reorganisation, that we have to produce information back by November. So generally supportive of this. I do think the remit does need to be tightened a bit more, and I think the 3 months is overly optimistic for a full report on this. However, I think a 3 months interim report with a commitment to produce a fuller report, final report, as soon as possible after the 3 months would be a fair compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crump. Councillor Junot.
I'd like to place on record my thanks to the residents of the pastures who came to this council in 2019 and first raised this as an issue at council and with their concerns. That was the time when we found out that the policy had been changed by the council in 2005, but then that was a recognition that we did need to reconsider it. But I'd also like to place on record my thanks to the Competition and Markets Authority report, because that raised the issue of the ways in which the private sector management companies were operating, some good, some not so good, some particularly bad, not only in public open space but in flood alleviation and adoption of private roads. And that has started a process in government where legislation is now being considered to be able to change this. Because as they said in their report, it's not equitable for the residents of a development to have to pay for the ongoing maintenance of community assets that benefit the entire community whilst also paying standard council tax. I thank you very much, and I back this notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Junot. Councillor Bromwich.
Yeah, so again, I welcome the fact we're setting up this task and finish group. I think it needs to be afforded all the time it can to get the best possible information it can, to be able to give the best possible reports. And that. I stand here to speak as one of the few councillors probably ever taken on a management company and actually had success in getting them removed from an estate. So I know how difficult it is. And I've certainly worked with others around Southam and that, and they will dig their heels in, they will use every excuse possible. And I think ultimately we have to afford our task and finishing group every opportunity. And if it takes longer than 3 months to get it right, then it's got to take longer than that. Because through that, we can then leverage central government, and everybody wants the best outcome here, and to stop this nasty practice. And I'm going to call it out for what it is, a nasty practice. And I know certainly on Councillor Adams' ward at the moment, which formerly used to be on mine, they are facing phenomenal increases at the moment for the work that's actually being done. And there's no justification for it other than this has become a licence to print money for a bunch of scam artists. And I'm calling it out as it is. They are, a lot of them, con artists.
Thank you, Councillor Bromwich. Before I go to the proposer and seconder, are there any other councillors who wish to speak on this subject? Okay, Councillor Jenny Fradgley, please.
Very briefly, just to say that this issue is of immense interest to residents, parish and town councils, as well as the district. And I'm delighted that this task and finish group has been proposed across the council so people with expertise can actually join it. And I look forward to its prompt beginning and bringing forth an interim report as soon as possible. Thank you.
Councillor Coucher, do you want to sum up, please?
I think all are united in this. I think we need action as soon as we possibly can, because that's what our residents are looking for, and so therefore I would urge the working party, when it's formed, to get on with the job and to produce a report as soon as it possibly can.
Thank you. We've got a proposer and a seconder. Are we all agreed? Thank you very much. Agreed that the recommendations noted in the report are approved. We move on to item 9, minute 119 from the Cabinet meeting on the 7th of July 2025 regarding the replacement of windows at Elizabeth House. I invite Councillor Adam to introduce this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, so we're looking at replacing the windows for Elizabeth House, which is one of the major assets that the District Council is a steward of. The original budget of 1.6 million, which was accepted earlier in the financial year, isn't quite up to the tenders that are coming back, so we're looking to increase the budget on top of that, and the amount requires that to come to council. There are some significant savings in terms of the carbon expenditure through improving the windows of Elizabeth House, as well as improving the working conditions for all of our staff. And we're looking to occupy this building for at least 2 years, hence, and maybe on beyond that. So I think this is a sensible investment, and like I say, it's just on top. This isn't reconsidering the 1.6 that was already agreed. So I'd look for support from council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. Do I have a seconder for this, please? Councillor Ballinger.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second this motion, but reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Do I have any members who wish to speak on this? No? Right. In which case, Councillor Ballinger, would you like to say your few words, please?
I haven't really got anything to say apart from the fact that, you know, it is what it is, and if it's needed, it's needed. And I'll let Councillor Adams summarise.
Councillor Adam, would you like to summarise what is needed?
Please see my previous comments.
Thank you. We've got a proposer and a seconder. Are we all agreed? Thank you. That the recommendations noted in the report are approved. Item 10 on the agenda is councillor questions. There are no written questions being received. Item 11. We have questions to the leader. We're having 30 minutes of this, please. So, hands up who would like to speak. Right. Fleming and Florence, Harry, Victoria Alcock, and Coucher. George Coucher. And Coucher.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Got you. Got you.
Yeah. Yeah, got you.
Council, can I just check, if I read out a list of names that we have got, if your name isn't on the list, can you just put your hand up if you did want to answer a question? So we have Councillor Alcock, Bromwich, Coucher, Crump, Fleming, Holmes, Littlewood, Parry, Pemberton, Petrovic, Scorer and Shenton. Sounds like we've got a full house.
Right. Once again, it's 30 minutes, so please keep it brief and quick, and please keep responses brief and quick. Otherwise, we could have a situation that we had before where we have to stop after 30 minutes. So I'm going to start.
We can just do in alphabetical order.
I'm going to start in alphabetical order. May I start with Councillor Alcott, please?
Maybe. Thank you, Chair. Leader, could you please join me in thanking Warwickshire Pride and Stratford Pride for an excellently organised event this weekend in Stratford town, and the pleasure it's given them to see the Pride flag flown from Elizabeth House for that event.
Very happy to do so.
Thank you. And my second question, could we please extend congratulations to former District Councillor Jill Cleave on her appointment to CEO of VASA? It's a huge thing for her and I'm immensely proud.
Again, I'm happy to do so. I know Jill Cleave, and she was a former district councillor, so that this is a well done to Jill. She joins a board that involves, also has on it, a former chief executive of this district council. So that I'm sure they will have quite a few discussions. But yes, congratulations.
Thank you. Councillor Bromwich.
Yeah, Leader, I'm very concerned about the current housing policies of central government, which have dramatically dropped our 5-year land supply. And we know developers are now questioning whether we actually have that 5-year land supply. And in Southern in particular, we've had one planning application come through, which is not in the core strategy, another one which is going to drop on the autumn, and I suspect across the district now, we're going to get bombarded by these and developers testing. But what concerns residents more is the lack of infrastructure. So whilst the government is directing this to happen, the infrastructure is not there, and people are feeling overwhelmed now about this. As a council, is it not time we started holding the people responsible for infrastructure equally to account as well, and try and engage ways as a district council and with the parishes to try and make sure that we can, when these applications are coming forward, that we're prepared, because I suspect we're going to get a lot overturned on appeal, and I suspect they'll try anything to build in this area because we are of high value, unlike Coventry, who have lots of empty places. And it seriously concerns me now that residents could be feeling really abandoned with their infrastructure.
Could I thank you for your question? Can I make it quite clear we are already ahead on our 5-year land supply. We've got 5.06, so that means we are better off than some councils, for example Warwick, which is already below the 5-year as a result of the changes in the way that the government is calculating this. I take your point, and I actually agree about the infrastructure. We've been making the point about making sure that we, for example, if Long Marston is to be used, that it does need a proper study about the way in which the infrastructure, it's not just roads, it's about schools, it's about GPs, it's about access to hospitals, it's about access to all the other services that residents need. Absolutely crucial. And I can say that the portfolio holder, George Coucher, has been absolutely adamant that infrastructure must come first. And this is why we need the South Warwickshire local plan. We have to have a plan-led approach to development in this area. It is in the best interest of everybody, residents and communities alike, that we have a plan-led approach to development. So thank you very much for your question.
Councillor Coucher.
I think Councillor Bromwich has asked the question I was going to ask. So.
Thank you. Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Chair. A part of the Cabinet report on the external figures 24-25, planning application fees were 427,000 adverse. And this came around quite late, being reported, it's not been reported previously. Could the leader tell me when this was first known, what is being done to tackle this, and what is the potential impact on the 5-year housing and land supply, as I believe it relates to larger applications not coming in as expected? Thank you.
Yes, indeed. It is on. It was in the report on planning enforcement that there was a 427,000 unvariable position relating to reduction in income from large planning applications. I do understand. I believe that this is something that is not just specific to this council alone. It may be, who knows, what they're waiting for before the planning applications come in. But there's also, I understand, a national problem with the actual provision of the skills, etc., that are needed to do development. I think it's something that I could get more information for you from the relevant officer and make sure that you are directly informed of that detail.
Thank you. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. The recycling contamination rate within the target KPIs was 5% for last year and is planned to increase to 10% in the coming year. Given that Cabinet papers now report the contamination rate's been as high as 26%, target rate that is easier than last year, how do you propose to achieve this, as you must have a plan to rectify? Otherwise the KPA seems meaningless.
Not quite sure about the contamination rate. I used to work in the waste industry as a planner, and as also I used to actually be on the West Midlands Planning Advisory Service that on waste. So I do know an awful lot about the contamination and why we do need to reduce contamination rate. The new material recycling facilities actually enables us to separate an awful lot more than we did before, and we actually have, I think it's the third best recycling record in the country. But it is something that's with recontamination. We do need to make sure that people are informed about what is contamination and how that is handled, because we certainly do not want a high contamination rate. But as I'm happy to do so, I'm happy to make sure that the officers concerned give you more information on that one so that you can be fully informed.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Chair. Neighbourhood development plans are a vital tool that allow our towns and villages to take greater control over the future of their communities. They play a key role in the planning system, help prevent inappropriate development where national and local policies fall short, while also guiding development towards more suitable and sustainable locations. Does the leader share my deep disappointment in the government's decision to scrap funding for the Neighbourhood Planning Support Programme, which has been essential for many of our towns and parish councils? And as the government presses ahead with increasingly centralised housing targets, does she agree that this is precisely the time where we need more input from our local parishes and towns, not less? And what is she doing to make sure that Stratford District Council is as open, transparent and listening to our residents on these issues? Thank you.
Can I thank the Councillor for this, because I do believe that NDPs are ways for communities to shape development and growth in their local areas. It's a means by which they can establish a vision for the area and increase the ability to influence planning within their areas. And when we reference back to what other people have said about infrastructure, often local knowledge is best on what the local infrastructure need is in an area. And it's something that I think if this is the way that government is going, then we need to be able to tackle this locally. I believe in making sure that local communities have an input. I'd really regret if NDPs were to be undermined in this way. I believe we need to find a way of making sure that communities have that ability to input, not only into their own communities and how they're shaped, but into our South Warwickshire local plan as well.
Thank you. Councillor Littlewood.
Thank you, Chair. Bear with me. There we go. As the leader has already mentioned, the 5-year housing land supply is above 5 years. And this has been used as part of a robust response to the Borden Hill appeal, which I don't intend to go into. But regardless of the outcome of that appeal, developers will undoubtedly challenge on land supply from now until the South Warwickshire local plan is brought into being. What is this administration's strategic rather than specific site-by-site plan to defeat such challenges and protect our communities?
The key thing is to make sure that the South Warwickshire local plan is delivered and is delivered on time. And we have to focus and make sure that that is done, because that is the strongest protection that we have. I've been a councillor long enough to know what happens if you do not have a South Warwickshire local plan and do not have a 5-year land supply. I believe it cost this council somewhere in 2014 about 2.2 million because that was allowed to happen at that time, and that must not happen here. We must make sure that the South Warwickshire local plan is done to a timetable and is delivered to the timetable, as well as making sure that we retain the 5-year land supply. And their officers are at the moment giving advice on to us and on how there are maybe other means in which we can make sure that we are delivering the 5-year land supply beyond this year.
Oh, a follow-up, yes.
Thank you. Follow-up question. Thank you. Thank you, Leader. So my question was specifically about the interval between now and the South Warwickshire local plan being brought into being. Because at the moment we are vulnerable, as I think we all agree, and we need to have to protect each attack by developers, as it were. We need to have a strategy that is a unified and uniform and robust strategy, and that's what my question was about for the interim period. And in addition, perhaps, I would be interested with what has already been referred to as the underfunding or removal of funding, should I say, of NDPs by central government. What perhaps this council could do as part of the interim strategy is to fund both new NDPs and also the renewal of those coming towards the end of 5 years. Thank you.
Certainly when I was replying to Councillor Holmes, that was one of my indications that I'd be prepared to look at how NDPs could be funded, because I do feel that they are key. But the existing NDPs, some of them already have land that is, that is being accepted by the communities within the NDPs, and they could be looked at. But there's also reserve sites in the original core local plan that went before, and again, those are worth looking at. We there are other options available to make sure that our 5-year land supply remains above the 5-year limit. And officers, again, we had a briefing, if you remember, from all councillors were invited to a briefing on this by the head of development, and I'm sure there will be other briefings as we go through, particularly once we have the outcome of the appeal that you mentioned.
Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leader. I understand that there are approximately 800 empty homes in this district that could potentially be brought back into use. Please, can the Leader advise how many empty homes have been brought back into use since the administration started in May 2023? Thank you.
I haven't got those figures to hand, but the head of housing is sitting at the back, and it certainly, can make sure that she checks those figures. It is absolutely key that no empty homes should be available, should be left, if at all possible. We don't. That's not something. It's interesting. That's again something that needs to be looked at by national legislation. But at the moment, we certainly need to bring them back in. And one of the things that is we are doing at the moment is looking at the changes in council tax to again encourage people to make their homes available. But we'll make sure that you get the information, the accurate information, straight to you. Okay.
Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you. Leader, later on in this meeting, we have a debate about climate change, which will be supported around the chamber. Recommitting to tackling climate change is right, but 5 years on, since we declared a climate emergency, does the leader agree with me that it's what is actually achieved that matters?
Absolutely. Not only what is achieved, but also, it should be reported on. Sometimes we've actually achieved an awful lot this year that is not yet always on the website, but we do need to report on everything that has been achieved. It is absolutely crucial to me that we tackle climate change. I know there's going to be a debate and a lot of people will bring up relevant things, but it was me that actually moved the original notice of motion on climate change in 2019, I believe. I want to, and I'm committed to delivering it. Thank you.
Supplementary, yes, if I may. And I agree with you, and I think I don't think there's anybody in the room would disagree with that. But bearing in mind your answer, will you support a member review of progress to date to look at the actual difference we've made? It's been 5 years or more, well, I'm getting on for 6 years since we declared a climate emergency, and I think it's appropriate that members have the opportunity to assess what's worked, what's not worked, and also whether the balance we have at the moment between CO2 reduction and adaptation to climate change in the district itself continues to be right, particularly noting the comments of both the climate change panel and indeed Caroline Lucas, the former Green MP, both of whom have commented that there's not enough focus nationally on adaptation in responding to the climate change emergency. So I'm really looking to see whether we could look at reviewing what we've done so far and lessons learned to move forward positively.
Indeed, and I would welcome that chance to be able to review. One thing that I feel has helped move things forward is the community climate change and nature funds, because it takes it out to the community, to communities to help encourage them to do what they can do and also get the message across. There is a limit to what the district council itself can do, but what we can do is influence others and work in partnership with others, and that's what I want to do a lot more of. I know that there is a lot that the district council is currently doing with its own buildings, and we've spoken about the window replacements, etc. But we're also looking at the solar panels on the various leisure centres, including the Stratford ones, which will be completed by the end of July, early August, and there are also plans for Studley and Southern leisure centres, which are already in the project initiation stages. So there's a lot that is happening. We do need to also work in partnerships, and I do recommend the Warwickshire County Council did have a climate change working group which brought together all the district councils and the county council to also express information about what they could do in shared between them. And I hope that those continue. At the moment, they haven't continued, but I do hope they will continue, because we also need quite frankly, the government at one stage used to have reporting back targets. You used to be able to report back to government on your Home Energy Conservation Act requirements and various other targets. A lot of those targets have now gone and there is no measurement at a national level. We do need to be able to measure council to council and how much we are doing on these things. So again, there is a role for those beyond us. We need to work with the county council, for example, on the transport, the amount of carbon that is produced in the transport sector, which is not under our control. The local plan will be able to influence a lot in climate change as well by having by encouraging best practice as well. There's a lot that we can do by influence, but I take your point. We do need to be able to measure and showcase what we've done so far.
Thank you. Councillor Scorer.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if the leader could help me answer a question by a resident I was asked this morning while I was buying a pint of milk in the shop. She wanted to know how many extra affordable homes has this administration facilitised since May 2023, over and above the numbers that were predicted in the housing trajectory as at May 23.
Again, this is information that the portfolio holder has and that we can get directly to you. There are numbers and we can make sure that you have that information.
Thank you. Councillor Shenton.
Call me cynical, but I actually didn't think we'd get to me. So, Leader, I'd like to first of all congratulate Julie Lewis and the team for the impressive recycling rate of 61.5%, which you alluded to a little bit earlier on for 2023-24, which placed us third within the English local authorities. But I note that the target that's been set for 24-25, which obviously you just finished, is greater than 63%, and for 25-26, greater than 64%. Could the leader outline whether, based on the DEFRA reports, or DEFRA return, should I say, whether we are likely to achieve the 63% rate for the fiscal year just ended, and if not, what does she perceive the root causes are for this?
I absolutely am dedicated to the idea that we should reach our targets. I think we can, particularly with the materials recycling facility that we have. We've just, you know, with all the additional extra recycling that we're able to undertake as a result, sorry, and yeah, we do. We can meet. I'm sure we will aim certainly to try to meet that target. Not only can we try to do it, we also need to make sure that our residents are able to help us do that. And I think that there probably needs to be more of that information that is sent out as to how people can do. And the fact that we've now been able to recycle various different types of plastic and etc. that weren't collected before, all are pushing in the right direction. But I'm happy again to make sure that you are fully informed by the officers on any improvements and the ways in which we can achieve it.
Yes, please.
Sorry, Leader, just to clarify, one part of the question was, do you know whether we've actually achieved the 63% for 24-25 based on the DEFRA reports, which would already have gone in? And I've got a second question, if I may then.
I understand that this is all part of the configuration of material recycling facilities and the part of the information that they are expecting of us, that this target has been given to them, and it's not just our contractors, but it's the whole, you know, the working arrangement between the facilities. So I think, you know, we'll do extremely well. I have to give due credit to the officers of this council for the way in which they keep their finger on the pulse of this, and the way that they push for this, and the way that the work that they undertake. So I'm happy for that. But again, I will double check with them and make sure that you are kept informed.
Second question, Councillor Shen.
Thank you, and thank you, Leader. The second question concerns the MRF, the material recycling facility. Sorry for the microphone and the camera. From the recent Cabinet report, I noted that the current forecast of tonnage delivered into the MRF is over 7% lower than planned with SDCs, lower than planned. Whilst other authorities, theirs varies from 20% down to over 14.7 more in the case of Warwick District Council, so local councils. An equalisation reserve of 500k has also been agreed, which is a sensible move. But this issue could impact upon, obviously, the capital repayments and the profit or dividend distribution that this authority should be receiving. What effect will this have on the medium-term financial strategy over the next 5 years? And has this been factored into the current budget? The further question amongst that, if I might, just pursue
just
it.
One, no more.
Okay, I'll leave it at that just
Thank
for the
you.
moment, and I can put the next one in a written question.
Yes, indeed. One of the things we have to take into account, and actually it's a good thing, is that many of the companies, such as Amazon and various other delivery companies, are actually reducing the amount of packaging that they're using when they deliver to homes. And that's a good thing that we also have to take into account. It's not just what we throw away, it's actually what's coming into the home in the first place. I mean, the ideal situation would be that there would be no spare material, that would go into. But the fact that we're able to put far more now into our recycling facility, including materials that we were told before would not be acceptable, I think is also very good. We're still delivering a very high standard, and one of the best standards in the whole country for a council, but of any sort. But yes, we're still on target to remain one of the better ones in the country.
Councillors, you've got 2 more minutes. Any more questions? No, I'm afraid, Councillor Shenton, you can't. Right, that is the end of questions. Now, I notice some councillors are waving their fans. Have you all got very hot? Would you like the air conditioning back on? Thank you very much. Okay. Notice of motions. Item 13.
12.
Item 12. Sorry, notice of motion update. This is for information only. Item 13, motions on notice. We have 4 motions on notice. The first one is members' basic allowance. I ask David Buckland, please.
Thank you. Officers have been made aware of a friendly amendment which has been proposed by Councillor Shenton, seconded by Councillor Parry, to the original amendment. As I understand it, both Councillor Bromwich and Councillor Harvey are happy with that proposed amendment. What it would see the deletion of the text.
Sorry, David, can I correct you? It's Councillor Linda Organ who seconded.
Sorry, Councillor Linda, proposed by Councillor Shenton and seconded by Councillor Organ. But it would see the removal of the text in the paragraph under the first paragraph. So just to read that sentence now, it says the recalibrated basic allowance of 6,201 is clearly not in line with what it would have been if it had been indexed since 2020-21, and just the text on that sentence deleted thereafter. Now, just looking for Councillor Harvey and Bromwich to confirm that they're happy with that amendment. I'm getting nods of indication, so that will be the motion which is debated. Thank you. Oh, we have some papers that we can circulate that confirms that. Thank you.
So, councillors, I invite Councillor Harvey to propose the motion. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. A little history. In October 2020, the previous council considered an annual report and recommendations made by the same independent review panel that was reappointed for a further period of service by this council at our last meeting. In the autumn of 2020, the panel received representations and reviewed the available evidence as it was bound to do. Its recommendations included one that there should be no structural adjustment to the member's basic allowance other than it should be increased by 2.75%. This was the increase indicated at that time by the relevant National Joint Council for Local Government Staff Index. When the previous council considered the panel's recommendations, members were very conscious of the social, economic and financial circumstances at the time. The country was in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and as a result, the council's finances were certainly uncertain. It was against this background that the council considered the panel's recommendations. The council decided, to the apparent disappointment of the panel, not only not to implement the panel's recommendation concerning the related index increase, in view of the uncertain longer-term impact of the pandemic, it decided to postpone any further contribution or any further consideration of all allowances until after the elections in May 2023. The panel had made its recommendation and the council had considered it. The council came to its own decision for good reasons. Both the panel and the council had fulfilled their respective roles. This experience contrasts with what went on in October 2023. The panel looked at the evidence, came to the conclusion that there was a case for the basic allowance to be increased, and then deliberately chose to ignore the evidence. Why did it do that? It did so because the panel had been advised by one or more of the minority of councillors who'd made representations to the panel that any recommendation to increase the basic allowance would not be approved by the council. The panel decided to be swayed from its responsibility to be and to be seen to be independent in coming to its recommendations based on the available evidence. The panel's failure to make a recommendation was a decision rooted in petulance. There are principles in public life that apply both to members of the panel and to members of this council. They include the requirement that holders of public office must act and take decisions impartially, fairly and on merit, using the best evidence and without discrimination or bias. This motion does nothing more than seek to ensure that the process that should have been implemented is implemented. It does no more than provide an opportunity.
You have overrun, Councillor Harvey. Could you wrap up very quickly, please?
In effect, this motion is a test of members' commitment to the standards by which public life is and should be conducted. For that reason, Chair, in proposing this motion and asking for the support of a seconder, I request that voting on this motion should be a recorded vote. I formally propose the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Do I have a seconder to your proposal of a recorded vote? Councillor Bromwich, thank you. Councillor Bromwich, would you like to second the motion, please?
Yes, I would like to second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Do I have any speakers on this subject? Councillor Shenton? Guess? Alcock? Organ? Okay. Let me start with Councillor Shenton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, the friendly amendment came about because, in my opinion, and the opinion of the group here, the issue is about the process, because as the motion quite clearly states in section 3, it's not for the panel to make recommendations to the council based on the evidence, it is for the council as a whole to decide whether or not to accept the panel's recommendations. on the basis of what the panel said, namely, there's no point in making a recommendation that the council would not support. A doctor would not give a diagnosis or prognosis in terminal cases because it's not what they want to hear. The principle in this motion is that the panel are charged with making a recommendation after considering all the relevant facts. That is where their duty and role ends. It is for the council to decide whether to accept the recommendation, not for the panel to refuse to put one forward. They are meant to be, the panel members are meant to be independent. And whether we, as members of the council, then do not take their advice, that is a decision for us as a whole, not for the independent panel to abrogate their responsibility. There's a very clear principle here that all members today should take seriously, that of an independent panel carrying out their duties free from interference or pressure to do otherwise. And I would ask everyone to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gist.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Harvey, for raising this issue. And I've revisited all of the paperwork and considered all of the points you've raised and what you've just spoken about. And I agree with Councillor Shenton that this is about process. So, as members are aware, under the regulations, the District Council is required to undertake a full review of members' allowances at least every 4 years. I note that the members of the IRP are experienced in public sector and that under the regulations, the Council must pay regard to their recommendations. It's within the terms of reference when arriving at their recommendations that the Council asks the IRP to take into account, as paragraph 4C, the views of the Council members, both written and oral. The report of the IRP states as follows. The meetings were held in private session to enable the IRP to meet with members and officers and conduct deliberations in confidence. In arriving at its recommendations, the IRP took into account a wide range of evidence, both written and oral. Any members who requested to meet the IRP were accommodated. Furthermore, to ensure that all members were given the opportunity to have their voice heard, they were invited to make a written submission if they so wished. It appears to me that the IRP have carried out their work diligently, carefully and in accordance with their terms of reference, and I therefore do not support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair. The thing about when you appoint an independent panel is they are going to be independent. They are not going to go one side or another, because that's what they're there to do, is to be independent. They're also there to take on the evidence. That doesn't just mean evidence of part of the evidence they have. That means all the evidence that has been presented to them while they were talking with councillors, hearing them, having emails, etc. with them. And if part of the evidence said, actually, we don't support this, that is evidence. Just because others don't agree with it, it is still evidence. My opinion of this is they did exactly what we asked them to do. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, came to council, we voted, and we're supposed to move on. I don't support this notice of motion because of all that. We had a choice, and the choice was made. It was voted on. And the part of the recommendation based on the evidence, they presented the evidence is what they had. That's what they had, that's what they presented, we voted. I don't support this at all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Organ.
Thank you, Chair. It's all a matter of process, isn't it? And to put it in a bridge term, very simply, it is not for the panel to preempt the prerogative of the council.
Thank you. Councillor Junod.
Can I make it clear that I respect the independence of the independent review panel and their ability to make independent decisions, and I do not want to interfere with their decisions or the processes that they come in to do. That is the whole essence of independence and an independent panel. But just to update that we are beginning the transition to a unitary authority. Once we have a decision, the IRP will actually be called in to review the new structures whenever that will be, probably about 2027. But yes, as part of that transition, it will be their role to come in and review the whole whole of members' allowances. I just feel that we shouldn't start questioning their independence. That is absolutely, you know, that is what an independent panel is meant to do. They're meant to be independent.
Thank you. Before I go to the proposer and seconder, do any councillors wish to add any further comments? No? Councillor Bromwich. Oh, Councillor Littlewood.
Thank you. Very, very short comment, really. And I echo colleagues who have mentioned that this is not about numbers. This is about process. So although I respect Councillor Alcock's comments, if it was to do with the fact that somebody was saying we weren't getting paid enough, that's not what it's about. It just happens to be the question around pay in this instance. I'm ignoring that and want to be assured, as does Councillor Shenton, that we're talking about the process that's been conducted correctly, and so that when we come to use it for any other reason in the future, we are confident that they will present an independent, a truly independent set of proposals or whatever, and then this council can then vote on it as appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bromwich.
Yes, I was more than happy to second this motion because I do think, having sat in those meetings and been interviewed by the panel and by listening to reading the reports that then come out, I don't think they were strictly as independent as what I would like to have them to be in some of the comments they made. I make it clear it's not about money whatsoever. It's about independence. What's independence mean? It means thinking freely. It means not taking on undue pressure. It was my view when their recommendations came forward to this council, they had succumbed to undue pressure. They didn't quite act in the independent ways that I would expect them to. And I think if there is an element of doubt in that at times, it is right to revisit. And this is a time where we've got to revisit to ensure the outcome may be exactly the same. We don't know, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And therefore, it is better to use a bit of wisdom, step back, and it may come up with something completely different, it may come up with the same. But it does not hurt to have another look into things when you think something's not quite right.
Thank you, Councillor Bromwich. Councillor Harvey, would you like to sum up before we go to the recorded vote? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Some interesting points have been made. This is about process. It's not about sums of money. Interesting contribution from Councillor Alcock about evidence. I fear, however, that Councillor Alcock finds it difficult to distinguish between the expression of opinion.
Point of order.
Yes.
Chair, I do not find it difficult. I understand the whole process perfectly. Thank you. Calling into question my understanding of something is not acceptable.
Would you like to rule on that, Chair?
Yes. Can you rephrase your comments, please, Councillor Harvey?
Some councillors find it difficult to distinguish between the expression of an opinion and the expression of evidence. In this particular instance, the panel admitted to everybody in their report that they had deliberately ignored the evidence. The evidence pointed to a conclusion which they were not prepared to express because things had been said to them. The issue is quite simple, in my mind. You either believe in the integrity of public life, that decisions are made
Recommendations are made based upon the evidence that's received and interpreted, or it's not. In this particular instance, the panel itself said that it did not follow through and make a recommendation based upon the evidence it had heard. The process was not followed. The council did not have an opportunity to receive a recommendation, to approve it, to amend it, or to reject it. It didn't receive a recommendation. That is a failure in process. And all this motion does is to provide an opportunity for the panel to go back, restore their standing, and have another go, look at the relevant evidence up to date, bring forward a recommendation which we can, as a council, as a whole council, can decide what we
30
want to do.
seconds,
with.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, councillors. We now go to the recorded vote.
Thank you, Chair. Once more, I'll be calling out councillors' names. If you could please indicate whether you are in favour, vote by saying for, against or abstaining to the motion that has been proposed by Councillor Harvey and seconded by Councillor Bromwich. Chair of Council, Councillor Rolfe.
Against.
Councillor Rice.
Against.
Councillor Adam.
Against.
Councillor Alcock.
Against.
Councillor Ballinger.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Bromwich.
For.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Coles.
Against.
Councillor Coucher.
Against.
Councillor Crump.
For.
Councillor Eden.
Against.
Councillor Fleming.
For.
Councillor Ian Fradgley. Councillor Jenny Fradgley. Councillor Gist.
Against.
Councillor Grocott.
Against.
Councillor Harvey.
For.
Councillor Hatch.
Abstain.
Councillor Hedger-Serafin.
Against.
Councillor Holmes.
Against.
Councillor Johnston.
Against.
Councillor Junid.
Against.
Councillor Keithley.
I'm abstaining for the reasons that I've not seen the wording of the panel's report.
Councillor Littlewood.
For.
Councillor Mills.
For.
Councillor Organ.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Parry.
For.
Councillor Passingham.
Abstain.
Councillor Pemberton.
For.
Councillor Petrovic.
Abstain.
Councillor Rock.
Against.
Councillor Scorer.
For.
Councillor Shenton.
For.
And that's it, Chair. I make that 12 votes for with 19 against and 3 abstentions. So that's lost.
Thank you. That means the motion has lost. Councillors, I'm going to bring forward the 3-hour rule, even though it's only 10 to 5, but we do have 2 quite heavy motions to debate. So due to the time and in accordance with the Constitution, a vote is needed to continue the meeting. Unless this vote is not carried, the remaining business will be considered at a time and date fixed or at the next ordinary meeting. May I have agreement from you all that you would like to continue, please? Is there anybody against that? Thank you very much, councillors. We will go with it. Thank you. Right, the second motion is the Ellen Badger Hospital. Yes, sure.
Thank you, Chair. I've no wish to curtail the debate, and we've just voted to go beyond the 3 hours. The only question that comes to mind is that the recommendation for this motion calls on the portfolio holder to write a letter But in answer to the question from the member of the public at the beginning of the meeting, the portfolio holder has agreed to do that. And so the recommendation's already been agreed. So I'm just asking for some clarification about how that puts us in terms of a debate and then a decision. It's just at a practical level, there is a commitment to do what the proposer and the seconder of the motion wish to do. I have no wish to not to have the debate, but I do wonder whether it's the most useful use of our time.
Monitoring officer.
Oh, Chair, sorry. Don't promote me. Chair, in response to the question from Councillor Pemberton, the difference would be that it would be supported by a motion of council rather than the portfolio holder just responded in her own right. So that would be the difference. And as we've had previous letters, we've been able to say that there was a decision from the whole of the council, not just the portfolio holder.
I'm quite happy with that. I just wanted some clarity about that. So apologies.
Thank you. So the Ellen Badger Hospital, I invite Councillor Passingham to propose the motion.
Thank you. The last 7 years has been a fiasco as far as health services in Shipston and rural South Warwickshire is concerned. 7 years ago, we were promised a new hospital. 4 years ago, plans were approved by this council to knock down the old hospital, to build a brand new hospital on the site, but also to build another building which was labelled Health and Wellbeing Centre, and another smaller building which was going to be called the Medical Centre. They were all approved 4 years ago by this council, and as my colleague said, there was SIL money, S106 money, and all sorts of other contributions on that understanding that we would get a new hospital. But soon after that, the SWIFT, South Warwickshire Foundation Trust, announced that they wanted to do a bed review for South Warwickshire. This bed review took 2 years to decide how many beds they needed in Warwickshire. And at the end of it, as we gradually got to understand, they said we didn't need any more beds in Shipston. They were going to move the beds to Leamington. We were going to have to rely on home care and care in the community. There was, at one point, a bright spot in that another planning application was brought in for a 12-bedded unit to renovate a building that's been retained on the site to have 12 beds. And we thought, well, maybe they've listened to all the public meetings and the demonstrations that we've had in Shipston saying that Shipston needs beds. But when it came to it, they said this building was going to cost £1.5 million, and they'd already, it seems, committed £10 million for this other building, which was now still called, well, they still try and call it a hospital, but it's a health and wellbeing hub, and it's got other uses as well, but it's not a hospital. It hasn't got beds. It hasn't got lots of the functions that we used to have in the Ellen Badger Hospital. So the beds were temporarily moved to Leamington.
30 seconds left.
Oh, right. They should have had a full public inquiry at that point. 7 years ago, we had a fully functioning hospital in Shipston. It was knocked down before a proper consultation was held. Now we have a £10 million building that nobody asked for, that has taken lots of the business away from other community spaces around Shipston, which a lot of people aren't very happy about. So I'd ask you to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Can I second the motion and reserve my right to speak?
Thank you. Members, who would like to speak? Yeah. Is that it? Councillor Crum.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's not the fact that we've been nearly 3 hours. I potentially would like to propose that we defer this item. Again, not because we're tired, and I'm sure he can be full of vigour for the next hour or so. I've got no problem with the idea of a debate on the Ellen Badger, but at the moment I think it's premature. And we might not have all the facts. OSC has organised a site visit to Ellen Badger on the 8th of next month, and that will be an accompanied visit by senior members of the ICB. OSC has also invited the ICB to come to the meeting on the 27th of August to discuss the Ellen Badger, where OSC will be asking many of the questions raised in the notice of motion, plus many others. And I think one of the ones we were particularly concerned about, that the loss of inpatient beds at the Ellen Badger Hospital will only lead to greater bed blocking of acute beds, leading in turn to longer stays in hospital unnecessary, and greater costs accrued by SWIFT. It will also add pressure on the community beds in the Stratford-on-Avon Hospital. So I think all these are relevant questions to ask, and I think if you've got the information from the horse's mouth, this notice of motion will be better informed, and therefore we can tailor any response to the Secretary of State, etc., based on the information. So no problem with the debate, but I think it's slightly premature, and I'm proposing that we defer the item.
Thank you, Councillor Crump. Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Chair. What?
Sorry? Sorry?
We've had a proposer.
Oh.
Can you ask for a seconder, please?
I thought I did. Councillor Johnston.
Sorry, I think the proposal is for a formal amendment to defer the consideration of the item.
Sorry, point of order on that amendment, please, Chair.
Let's just go back. Do you have a seconder for your amendment? Councillor Littlewood, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I second the amendment as proposed for deferment of this meeting until after the OSC have been on the site visit and discussed it, and also met with the ICB to answer the questions that were outlined, and then this council can then read that report and be more informed. Thank you.
Councillor Alcott, you have a point of order.
I do, Chair. Point of order that because the site visit to the Ellen Badger Hospital is only open to OSC members, it makes a difference to the members who are here, including the Cabinet members, to be able to debate it. So actually, I don't agree with the deferment.
Hang on a second. I'm going to bring in the monitoring officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just need to be clear on where we currently are. So the original motion was before full council today with a proposer and a seconder. Now, as I understand it, it's not that you're proposing an amendment today. The request is to defer the actual discussion to another day. Is that correct? Yeah.
Councillor Pemberton, is it point of order?
Well, point of order, a suggestion. Apologies, Chair. Point of order, but a suggestion. There's been this amendment proposed. I just wonder whether it might be helpful, because I think we've got points of order on points of order, whether we had sort of 5 minutes and perhaps the amendment proposers and seconders might have a conversation with the proposers to see whether that finds favour or not. That might help everybody through in terms of a deferment. That might help. If not, we just go through the process. It was just perhaps a practical proposal that perhaps the proposer and the amender might want to have a discussion to see whether they are comfortable with a deferral to October to allow OSC to do its thing.
In view of what has happened, I am going to suggest that we have a 10-minute recess to discuss this, if that's okay with all councillors. Can I have agreement with that? Right. There seems to be a division. Can we put that to a vote, please? Who would like a 10-minute recess to discuss the point of orders of the point of orders?
17.
Who would not like a 10-minute recess to discuss the point of order? Well, I think it looks like it's carried. So, councillors, there is a 10-minute recess. And can our group please go into the members' room? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify where we were before the adjournment, we were looking at item 13 in relation to the motion in relation to Ellen Badger. In relation to that motion, many in the chamber were keen to get on with that, but then there were others who asked, in fact, for a motion to be considered without notice for an adjournment for the reasons explained before the break. So it's a situation where we are now is regarding that motion without notice to adjourn, a decision needs to be made by the chamber on a vote as to whether or not that is to be considered for today, and that's at Chair's discretion, obviously. Thereafter, if whatever comes out of that, decisions can then be made.
Thank you. So we have a proposer from Councillor Crump and a seconder from Councillor Littlewood to defer this motion. I open it up for councillors to debate. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Coles, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. This notice of motion is to ask the leader portfolio holder to support a call-in request to the Secretary of State for Health by the Member of Parliament for Stratford-on-Avon to review the decision of Coventry and Warwickshire ICB to remove beds from Ellen Badger Hospital following public consultation. That is all that this notice of motion covers, and I don't think we need to defer any debate on that. I think we can vote on this and go forward. Obviously, overview and scrutiny has work to visit and to discuss, but it is actually separate from this notice of motion, which is to support our MP on her calling process. So I think they can be reasonably separated and treated as two different items rather than deferring the whole thing from now on. Speaking as the portfolio holder, I've already said to our visitor, a member of the public, that I'm more than happy to support our MP. I think this is an opportunity for the council as a whole to be asked to support this call-in. I think that's pretty clear, pretty straightforward. I think we can carry on with that, and other discussions about Ellen Badger can be carried on separately after due process. I don't think this notice of motion needs to be held up by any other discussions. On a slightly separate issue, I would like to ask the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, can I come on your visit too, please? Because they are reluctant to have an endless stream of councillors trotting through. I missed the public days, and I would like to come too, please. You all know I am already notorious for inviting myself to other people's parties, so I thought I'd just take shameless advantage of the fact that I've got the mic and put that one in at the moment.
Can we take that offline, please, Councillor Coles? Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Coles has already made much of the points I wanted to make. As the ICB actually took the decision to remove the beds from, not to return the beds to Shipston under their review of rehabilitative services 2 or 3 months ago, quite some time ago. I see the OSC visit as to look to the future. We have a building now completed, costs a lot of money, with no apparent purpose. And OSC's job is to look at the building and interrogate Swift on the future use of this building when they come to see us at the end of August. As I understand it, the Member of Parliament has already decided to call in this request. We are simply being asked to support her in that action.
Thank you. So we have a proposal and a seconder to defer this motion. All those in favour to defer this motion, please raise your hands. All those against deferring the motion, please raise your hands. That's carried. We can now talk about the motion, and are there any members that wish to speak on the motion? Coles, Councillor Coles, followed by Councillor Alcock, followed by Councillor Shenton. Any other councillors wish to speak on this? Councillor Crump. But he deferred on that. He spoke on the deferral. Yeah, okay.
It's your discretion.
Absolutely. We have 4 speakers before we go to the proposer and seconder. So, Councillor Coles.
Yes, I am more than happy as portfolio holder to send this letter, and I think that for the notice of motion, we should support our MP in her call-in for this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alcock.
Thank you, Chair, but it's already been said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. There's a couple of things I wanted to just highlight in this. Point 3 of the motion says that the public consultation exercise found 82% of the public supported the return of the inpatient beds to Shipston. That is incorrect, because 82% of the public did not respond to that. It's 82% of the respondents to the consultation. There's a subtle difference there. And the loss of inpatient beds will only, where are we? Sorry, item 7, section 7. It said that the OSC visit is to look at the future, but section 7 here talks and calls for the beds to be returned to Shipston. Now, you know, Chair, that I spoke at great length at OSC on this. There is a lot of evidence, a lot of data. The public consultation was done. This has already been discussed. In fact, the portfolio holder says the health authorities have followed due process, which has been informed by public consultation, and we are assured that they're seeking to provide an innovative health facility. So, for me, I still have a problem with this whole idea. I'm not quite sure what you're asking for here. Are you asking for additional beds? Are you asking for the return of the beds from Leamington and from Stratford, which I would oppose because that disadvantages residents in the north and the east, where most of the people, most of the patients come from? If Shipston itself was to have beds, it would need 3, maybe 4 beds maximum, and that would be inefficient. The rest of the proposed beds would be occupied by people from the north and to the east, and to take beds away from Stratford and Leamington would mean that people would have to, visitors and the patients would have to travel further and be more inconvenienced than they are. This doesn't make sense to return beds. I am absolutely adamant on that, and the data is there, and everyone knows, you were there, everyone knows that the data is there. There is a big consultation document full of the data. To return beds to the Ellen Badger would cost another 1.6 million in capital cost and 350,000 every year for the next however many years. And people would, from the north and the east, and I live in the north of South Warwickshire, and over to the east, over to Southam, and that, they would be inconvenienced. They would be disadvantaged for the sake of beds being returned to the Ellen Badger. I'm not against the letter or anything like that going to the Minister, but I would challenge the view that beds should be taken away, if that indeed is what the proposal is about, the motion is about. Because we've already had this long debate in
You've had your 3 minutes, Councillor Shent.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, councillors, even though I work very hard on this at council, at the County Council, I'm not allowed to have an opinion or say anything. But I think you've alluded to the fact that how I feel about this. Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to raise a few things after what Councillor Shenton has said. I think possibly talking about the low turnout from the consultation slightly misrepresents an issue. The consultation was deeply flawed. It pitted communities against each other as an either-or, where in fact we need both. You know, Stratford and Shipston are both growing massively, and with the top-down government targets, it's only going to get worse. there was a petition from our Member of Parliament which had over 4,000 signatures, which I think shows the strength of feeling on this. So I think those points are possibly needed to have been raised. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crump.
Thank you, Chair. I don't need to speak now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rock.
I'm just wondering, Councillor Shenton tells us that point 3 is actually mathematically incorrect, or incorrect in English. I mean, I don't know about this, how this data has been collected, but is Councillor Shenton saying it should say in number 3 that the public consultation exercise found 82% of the respondents supported the return of inpatient beds in Shipston? Because if that's what happened, should the proposer and seconder accept a correction to that? Because I'm sure we don't want to approve something that's incorrect. And the second point is, Councillor Shenton said he didn't know what we were recommending. Well, I think it's actually, to be fair, I think it says it in the recommendation as to what it says. So I think it's clear it's asking for a review of the decision to the ICB. So all his points are fairly made about looking at the numbers and all the rest of it, but I think that's covered in the recommendation. So I would suggest we check with the proposer and seconder that they're to accept the very fine point that Councillor Shenton makes about the respondents being changed to make sure we get it correct. But otherwise, I think we should proceed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So if we actually agree to rephrase that, of 82% of those who responded to the public supported, are you happy with that, Councillor Passingham, Councillor Johnson?
Yes. Happy.
Yes.
You are. You are. Okay, so the next speakers are in fact Councillor Johnston and Councillor Passingham as proposers and seconders to this motion.
Thank you, Chair. We've heard already today from... Is that a point of order? Is it?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak. I wasn't quite sure whether we...
Okay, so is it a point of order or would you like to speak, Councillor Pemberton?
I wanted to speak if at all possible.
Okay, please do speak.
Thank you, members. I hear and understand Councillor Passingham and Councillor Johnston's concerns about how this process has unfolded, and I do share concerns about how the NHS through the ICBs do go about their business in terms of how they make decisions about the shape of services. But I'm on the horns of a dilemma somewhat, in that for the public, and we talk about a hospital, most people think in terms of beds and inpatient care. But the reality of how medicine is moving and evolving, and the notion of what are called virtual wards, is very much in the direction of travel towards, where possible, getting people out of acute beds quickly. You know, historically, people would have bed rest. And nowadays you're immediately up into physiotherapy and recovery. Many times the afternoon of an operation in the morning, and so there is a pull towards ensuring that we have the best clinical outcomes, and there is lots of evidence that suggests that particularly secondary and recovery care, step-down care, is more effectively delivered for a lot of patients in the home, supported by a virtual ward type approach. The speaker earlier on talked about how that system's not actually operating properly, but that doesn't mean to say that that's not actually the best practice. And again, in my own day job life, I have seen plenty of evidence about the efficacy of getting people out of inpatient beds as soon as possible. I am in the position where I would be quite keen to understand what is actually proposed and moving forward for this. I have no problem with a request for a calling, and Wes Streeting can make his decision about the future of the Ellen Badger. But I find myself in a quite challenged position about coming to a landing on this, because on the one hand I do understand the pull for and what was felt to be the promise of beds, but things have moved on even in that 7-year period.
Councillor.
So I'm struggling with this one, and I would like to see and hear, and I'm going to watch the ICB when they come into the OSC and see what comes in. I'm struggling to go either way on this one because of the challenges I see around delivery. So from my perspective, I'll be sitting this one out. But I do understand, and I have no particular objection, if you will, to the thrust of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Pemberton. So before I go to the proposer and seconder, are there any other councillors that wish to speak on this subject? Thank you. So, Councillor Johnston, please.
Thank you, Chair. There is a fair degree of confusion about this. What we're questioning is the decision of the ICB on the distribution of the rehab beds. The people who are going to take decisions about the way forward, who are going to come to OSC, is the South Warwickshire Foundation Trust. It's a different organisation taking different decisions. The decisions of the ICB were made on certain assumptions that they gave us about bed numbers, about costs, etc. And it is the MP's decision to ask Wes Streeting to take a look at it. And all this resolution is asking us to do is to support our Member of Parliament asking the question. What the outcome of that is, we do not know. It may mean someone looks at the assumptions and says they're okay, or they may say, hang on, population's going up, you need to be providing more rehab beds than you're thinking. We were told today from Carol Gibbs about the history. Councillor Dinny told us about the pressure on local home-based services. I note, Chair, that you've had to move from the playing field to the referee's chair, but I would like to pay tribute to Councillor Rolfe's efforts to, in particular, make sure that public consultation took place on this topic. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be having this debate at all. I would urge the Council to support the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston, for your thank you. Councillor Passingham.
Thank you. The point of the motion is that the process was not carried out properly. Services were taken away from Shipston before a proper public consultation was made. And on top of that, what the services we were losing were the services of a community hospital, which included step-up beds, step-down beds, end-of-life beds, day monitoring beds that the local doctors can keep an eye on a patient they're worried about, all that sort of thing, and that entails lots of other services being at the local hospital. This is a model that they've got in lots of other places around the country, in Morton in the Marsh, for instance, and what the people of Shipston, in effect, are saying is the model for South Warwickshire being such a big rural area, that suits the model for South Warwickshire. And that is what has suited it for the last 120 years. There was a really good contribution to the public inquiry by the local medical practice saying how fantastic it would be to have local beds and they can look after their patients in hospital. That is the sort of model that people had been used to in Shipston. That's the model that's been taken away. That's the model that works in lots of other, particularly rural areas around the country. So that's why we want the the decision reviewed by the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Councillor Passingham. We're going to vote on the recommendation. I will read the recommendation out, which is for the leader and portfolio holder to support a call-in request to the Secretary of State for Health by the Member of Parliament Stratford-on-Avon to review the decision of the Coventry and Warwickshire ICB to remove beds from the Ellen Badger Hospital following public consultation. All those in favour of that recommendation, please raise your hands. All those against? Any abstentions? So it is now carried. Thank you very much, councillors. And now we move on to the climate emergency. Let me get my page. And I invite Councillor Johnston to propose the motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this resolution is twofold. It's to give the Council the opportunity to reaffirm the decision of 2019. This is a very different Council in membership since that time. But most importantly, to recognise that this work has become more urgent by events that have taken place since 2019, namely the need for energy security and to contribute to dealing with the cost of living crisis. In my view, climate change is obvious. Just this summer, I think we're coming to the end of, hopefully, the third heat wave, where temperatures in some parts of the big country have been way above 35 degrees. A couple of years ago, we had 40 degrees. 30, 40 years ago, this was completely unknown in this country. We've seen major incidents, perhaps most memorably recently the fires in Los Angeles and the floods of the Guadalupe River in Texas, both of which led to tragic loss of life, and our thoughts must be with those affected. Stronger, more resilient communities are required. Recent world events have demonstrated how vulnerable the UK is to global issues. We rely on a pipeline from Norway for oil across the North Sea. Russian vessels explore our waters, recording the location of pipelines and cables. Though challenged by the Royal Navy, they can't be stopped. Our dependence on imported fuel must be reduced. The UK needs self-sufficiency. The more we can develop homegrown solar and hydropower, the more that we will be able to control the price of fuel and not be so dependent as we are on the international price. People involved in energy advice know that they are dealing with the cost of living crisis. At its last meeting, our Cabinet agreed to fill the reduced allocation from government on warmer homes from the Council's General Reserve. We do have to press forward on this. I would suggest the need for this has become more urgent, and I would urge the Council to endorse the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do I have a seconder to this motion?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm seconding the motion. I'd like to reserve my right to speak as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keith. I open it up to debate. Who would like to speak on this, please? Councillor Parker.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to say really quite briefly, obviously from this side of the House, of the room in fact indeed, we are delighted that the Lib Dems have taken this opportunity to reaffirm a sincere commitment to the climate emergency, which was passed by a previous Conservative administration. In fact, I believe probably all members of this House, of this room, would support the motion. This leaves the Cabinet in a perfect position to strengthen their resolve for action on climate and the environment. I would also like to deal briefly with this proposal for the Cabinet, which is taking the option to review additional roads to serve south of the town. And of course, if this were to go ahead, it would blow away all of the carbon saving that this council could ever bring forward. I don't say this as some great anti-roads evangelist. In fact, perhaps to the contrary, I'm pretty pragmatic. But like all these decisions, they need to be made with a view to the carbon involved. And if we are to say to any programme, if we are to support any programme which is going to create lots more carbon, we've got to say where we're going to save it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pemberton.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Johnston, the makeup of this room may well have changed, but I cannot for a second imagine that the views have changed around what needs to be done in terms of climate change, which is, in my view, and a view shared widely, an existential threat to the species and has to be treated like that. And I was also heard in that debate, and I still hold to this, and this might be a message more for the cousins across the Atlantic, but at some point we will drag people kicking and screaming to change. Because for all of our wish to engage people and for them to make good choices, there will come a point, in my view, because I don't believe the planet is working hard enough to achieve this. You know, the notion of 1.5, you can forget. We're done with that. You know, it's how we pull this back, you know, to whether it's 1.82, whatever it is. But people will be dragged kicking and screaming to the change they need to make on a planetary basis. So I've got no problem with this. I would, in terms of the whole motion, I'll support the motion. I would observe that I would have preferred to see under part 3 something around the question of cooling homes as well as keeping them warm and addressing, fuel poverty, which is a near term, but longer term, cooling homes is going to be and businesses is going to be a challenge. So I absolutely will be supporting this. We have to do what we can. I do refer to my earlier comments that I do think that now is a good waypoint to look at what we've done, what's worked, making sure that moving forward the balance around CO2 reduction versus adaptation for the district is right. And I would like, and I did feel I got an agreement from the leader that we would move forward on that, and I would hope that members would support that so we can make sure we're being as smart about this stuff as we possibly can be. But I have no problem at all with the motion as it is. And if anybody's going to speak against it, I'll stand you all a drink.
Suddenly everybody's a climate denier. Thank you. Councillor Shenton.
Thank you, Chair. I go back 5-6 years on this when we first talked about this, and Councillor Pemberton drove the debate. And I remember, hopefully you'll remember, Councillor Rolfe, when you came back in to this room with the plastic stirrers, waving them and saying we have to get rid of them. And so I welcome this. However, I have to ask, why are these in the members' room again? The plastic stirrers that you waved at me 6 years ago. So I welcome this review because something is going wrong.
I'll have words. Councillor Rock.
I'm very intimidated by the chair saying I'll have words, as I'm sure the chief executive is. Now, I just wanted to say I remember that debate back in this time, and it was one of the rare occasions where there was unanimity across the council, and I'm sure we're going to get it again from what I'm hearing here. So thank you very much. Let's do it again. Yes. Let's have everybody vote in the same way. So thank you very much.
Agreed. Thank you. Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
Thank you, Chair. I need to, well, back in 2017, I brought a motion to the County Council on adaptation to motion change. The motions for Council for climate change came in 2019, slightly later. It's incredibly important that we actually address this issue. And I'm actually pleased to see that on the media, or that I'm listening to, there is a move towards actually saying that the climate change is real. This has only happened fairly recently. So many people, our residents, have been made comfortable with the idea that it's not changing yet. We can actually ignore it, and we've allowed the fossil fuel companies to make millions of pounds over years, a bit like the smoking debate. We haven't actually insisted that people making money out of fossil fuels take some responsibility for what's actually happening. I think it was in New Zealand in 1916 that there was a first indication with the opening of large factories that something would have to be done with the CO2 that was actually being produced there. So we need to look at reducing our carbon emissions, but sadly we need to also look very carefully about how we adapt to what has already happened that we will find very difficult to walk away from. So I think there are two things here: reducing our carbon and actually telling people, okay, we only produce 1% on the globe, but that 1% is important. If everybody actually reduces, we might have a chance, but we do actually, while we're waiting to roast, have to actually make it more comfortable for people in their houses, hospitals, and for the fish in the sea, and for the plants, and for everybody else. We are in a desperate situation.
Councillor Crump.
Yeah, I won't be opposing this one or asking for a deferral or adjournment on. Just again, I think it's implied, but I think it was important to mention as well. We talk about the cost of living crisis and improving energy security. So the couple of securities we need to be mindful of is food security, because during the winter the farmers have got too much water, and then come the summer they've got not really enough. And water security as well, increasing population. We're not being able to store the water so much, or too much in the summer, too much in the winter and not enough in the summer. So again, it's almost implied in this part of the list, but I think it's important we don't forget about those two items as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crump. Before I go to the proposer and seconder, are there any councillors wish to say anything more? Okay, so I'm going to go back to Councillor Keithley, please.
Thank you very much. Well, I'll be quick. I've noticed the time is pressing on, but I've got a couple of things just to say. I remember back in 2019 reading an article that Councillor Pemberton had in the press about making a golden thread of this climate change throughout everything we did, and he's in fact just asked a question to the leader earlier on about recommitting this, and he thinks it's right. I think we all agree with that. Just to say, you probably know, some of you, I had 4 decades in the cement and concrete industry. These industries are working very, very hard to decarbonise and find ways of reducing their own carbon footprint, but we need to go faster and further. A couple of reports have recently been published that I just wanted to highlight. Firstly, the latest State of the UK Climate Report shows how baselines are shifting, record breaking is becoming more frequent, temperature and rainfall extremes are becoming the norm. Secondly, a report by the Office of Budget Responsibility. It concluded that climate change poses a significant risk to the UK economy, and these risks are in 3 areas: the transition cost to net zero, economic damage due to climate extremes, and the cost of adaptation I think the point that one of the councillors across there was making about cooling houses, not just heating them. So this is why this motion is so important. It endorses our commitment, recognises initiatives to tackle the cost of living crisis, and recognises the health benefits to our residents as set out in the paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston, would you like to sum up, please?
I don't think I have very much to add. I hear all the points that have been made, particularly about adaptation to climate change and dealing with the consequences and what we're having to deal with now. On Councillor Parker's point, I've got a lot of sympathy with that, but I think we're going to have a major problem with the South Warwickshire local plan and infrastructure, and we're not going to find easy solutions to that. So finally, could I urge you to support the motion? I get the impression there's fairly strong support within the room, so let's get on with it.
Okay, councillors, so let's go to the vote. Can I ask you to put up your hands if you are in favour of this motion going forward? I think that is unanimous. Thank you very much, councillor. Motion for hospital access and information in accordance with council procedure rules. Once proposed and seconded, the motion will be referred to the Cabinet for consideration and report without debate. I invite Councillor Rock to propose the motion.
I propose the motion.
Thank you. I invite Councillor Hencher-Seraphin to second the motion.
I'll second Councillor Rock's motion.
Thank you. Item 14, urgent business. I have no urgent business, but I just want to remind you that there is a lovely picture at the back of the room of us all, and we look absolutely gorgeous. And that those who have ordered pictures, I think they've all been delivered to committee services, and I'm sure you can pick them up as and when. I saw a big pile of them in reception earlier, but that is a rather lovely photograph, and it'll go in my room or in this room to show a lovely new council. So thank you very much. There being no further business, I would like to thank